Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a CastBox original produced in partnership with our friends at Studio 71. CastBox is the fastest growing, highest rated podcast app on both iOS and Android, and all of your favorite podcasts are there, ripe for the downloading. Sacred Symbols is available wherever you get your podcasts, of course, but we hope you'll give CastBox a shot. We think it's pretty rad. To get each episode of Sacred Symbols 3 days before the public, completely ad-free, please consider supporting the show on Patreon at patreon.com/ColinsLastStand. Perks for support include not only getting the show early and ad-free, but you can also gain access to monthly exclusive podcasts. And supporting on Patreon is the only way to get your listener mail read on the air, and much more. Plus, supporting Sacred Symbols on Patreon also nets you perks for other Colin's Last Stand shows automatically, including the nostalgia and retro podcast Knockback, the YouTube series dedicated to gaming called SideQuest, and the eclectic interview podcast Fireside Chats. Thank you for your generosity, kindness, and support. Without you, Sacred Symbols and all things Colin's Last Stand would not exist. But enough of that. On to the show. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode 32. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by the voluptuous Chris Raygun.
Voluptuous?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't like that one.
No?
No.
You don't enjoy that?
No,
it's a little bit of a
not.
perverted word, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
There's something about it that sounds immediately seedy.
See, I always thought when I was a young man, and this was as of maybe 5 years ago even when I wasn't so young, that the word was voluptuous.
Oh, you put like an M in there?
Yeah, because I thought the root was volume, right? Because it's about...
Oh,
you know, the fullness of a person, you know, or like the... Typically you talk about a woman being voluptuous, she's maybe...
Yeah, that's not the most...
I was going to say big-breasted, all right? But something of that nature, you know, that's kind of what you think when you think of that word.
I would say that's a reasonable alleyway to go down to come to a false conclusion.
Right, but it is voluptuous, not voluptuous, so I don't know. You're really not voluptuous at all, but...
No.
But I wanted to use that word anyway.
I'm a stick.
You are a stick. Well, welcome, Chris. I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing all right, yeah.
Hanging in there?
Yeah, hanging in there. No more, brain worms digging around in my sinuses.
Now Erin's down for the count.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, she has some sort of cough. It sounds like she has the black lung. Like she's been a West Virginia coal miner for 40 years. It's really quite incredible what's going on over there with Erin. So she's in bed, but she's coughing, waking up coughing.
That's not good.
Sitting coughing. Yeah, it just came out of nowhere. So we hope that she survives.
It really does be like that sometimes.
But everything else is going well with you in your life right now?
Yeah, totally. I'm getting a lot of projects underway that are finally coming together, which is good. Music-related stuff that I'm pretty excited about.
Cool. And you have another new video up. This is weird because I think I thought you did because you did... Was the glasses off the last one? Because then you did a Let's Play, I thought, of Resident Evil.
Oh, I did a Resident Evil thing on the Snark Tank on my second channel, yeah. It's just like a little edited... together stream highlight kind of thing.
Oh, cool.
It was a lot of fun though.
When you stream on Twitch. What's an average number of people that watch you like concurrently? What I don't even really know what's considered good on there. Is it? Like,
I don't really know what's considered good on there either. I usually get like around 300 to something.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Now, Chris, I mentioned last week, and just a little bit of housekeeping before we get involved in the show. There's a lot to get through today. But before we do that, I wanted to let everyone know that I had mentioned that we would probably have to we would never miss an episode. We have an episode every week. The audience already knows that. We had episodes over the Christmas break and everything. But I had thought that we would need to record a makeshift kind of episode that would go live because I wasn't around. But that's not the case. So I want people to know one thing, okay? In a couple of weeks, I'm going to go to Philadelphia to record Knockback with my brother. The podcast that week for patrons will go live on February 27th instead of February 26th. Free feeds will not be affected. It just means you and I have to record on a Tuesday instead of a Monday. Okay. I think we'll be able to do that, but I just wanted to let everyone know, not to fear. We'll remind you that that's happening. I got to get out of here for a little while, go see Dagan, my brother, and do some stuff. So there's that. Chris, I wanted to ask you another question before we got any further, though. Because actually, my attention was drawn to a tweet a person made about you on Twitter.
Yeah.
Making fun of you, which I don't like. I don't like when people make fun of Chris. Funny. Because I want to put Chris, I'm like Dracula with that big cape. I want to put Chris underneath the cape, protect him. And this person was incensed and confused. I don't know if incensed is even the right word. Confused because of your seeming endless hatred of Imagine Dragons, which is a band.
Yeah.
Now, I must admit, I don't even know if I know any of their songs. It must be one of those bands that I would definitely know.
Oh yeah, for sure. You've definitely heard it in some kind of commercial or in an Uber or something.
Right.
They're everywhere. They're unavoidable.
And why is it that you dislike these people so much? Because someone pointed out that you actually consistently seem to have a hatred for.
It's a consistent. I don't really hate them all that much. I just kind of don't like them, and I have a passing kind of disdain. I don't think about them often, but every now and then I just think. I think it's a fairly amusing thing to really despise because it's so mundane and forgettable. So it really is more of a joke. But I really don't like them. I don't know. It's just really formulaic stuff, but also. The lead singer of that band married the lead singer of another far superior band, and ever since then, that band has sucked.
What is that band?
Nico Vega. They used to do really weird, I don't even know how to, like, folk, punk, it was really weird. But then it started to sound like Imagine Dragons. So there's, like, a little bit of a grudge there.
I see. So it's contagious, is what you're saying.
It's contagious. It's a virus, and it needs to be quarantined.
See, that name Imagine Dragons, that to me invokes Scandinavian metal or something like that.
No, it's absolutely not.
Yeah.
Imagine dragging my body into a grave.
Oh.
There you go.
Well, fair enough. Chad Mitchell wrote into us on Patreon, Chris. And remember, if you want to submit your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas, and support our independent content, get it ad-free and early, all of the rest, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/ColinsLastStand, just like Chad does. And by the way, we really appreciate you guys doing that over there. It says, hey, Colin and Chris. I enjoy watching the Let's Plays that you've started doing often. And he's talking about me. I just did a Resident Evil 2 one. Chris just did a Resident Evil 2 one that's obviously far better. Would you ever consider letting the community vote on which games to do Let's Plays on? Keep killing it and keep making Tuesdays great again. Well, Chris and I, right after this, are going to record our very first Let's Play together.
Yeah.
And it's for a game on PlayStation 4 that has the audacity to cost $30, by the way. I thought when I was going to go get it, I'm like, this is a $4.99 game, a $9.99 game.
Yeah,
$30.
It seems like a $4 game.
It's called YouTuber's Life OMG. That's the full name. And YouTubers has no apostrophe either before or after the S. So there's no possession. It's just YouTuber's Life.
I'm surprised they managed to call it that, honestly.
Me too, because you would think that that would be a trademarked verb, right?
Yeah.
Well, not a verb. It's not a verb. What the fuck am I talking about? A trademarked verb?
Yeah.
I got to go to bed. It's a trademarked verb, YouTubers. YouTubing is a verb.
Yeah.
YouTuber's a noun, of course. But we're going to do a Let's Play on that, Chris. And right after this, and that's going to go live for everybody. And I think it would be fun if on Patreon. So on Patreon, at the $2 level or higher, I give people lots of perks over there, right? You get to vote on episodes of Side Quest, on episodes of Knockback. That's how you submit questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas to the show, et cetera, et cetera. So what I'm going to do in the coming month is make a poll. First, we're going to do like a little primary election. And I'm going to have everyone submit the games that they want us to do Let's Plays on, and then have other people vote on those. And then the best will rise to the top. And you guys, our lives will be in your hands, basically, is what I'm saying.
That's not a bad idea.
You guys can make us play the most horrific shit. So another reason to support us over there. And again, as long as we stay above 5,000 patrons at a time, we'll continue to do 1 or 2 Let's Plays a month. And that does take into account the period of attrition we experience at the end of the month where numbers fall and then come back because a credit card declines. So don't worry, I'm not playing any games. There are no shenanigans going on over here. So thank you for that. So yeah, look forward to that over on YouTube. It'll be live by the time this podcast hits free feeds. Kenneth Ohms wrote into us and said, hey, Colin and Chris, Pistola de Reyes.
Ooh, look at that.
It's a little Spanish.
I appreciate it.
I know this is a PlayStation podcast, but I was wondering if you two saw Xbox's Super Bowl commercial for their adaptive controller. It shows physically disabled kids having the time of their lives playing video games and how playing these games helps them make friends and feel like a part of the community. I know that it's a polarizing time in the world, and video games, nerd culture, and gamers get shit on unfairly, but this made me so happy that it brought tears to my eyes at work. I was wondering if this is something Sony should also look into doing, as gaming is a fun community and hobby, and it's worth becoming more accessible to all. Did you see the full commercial that they played yesterday?
I did, yeah. It was a good ad.
It was.
It was very nice. I think it'd be a great idea for somebody to look into it. Or even just like being really, sportsmanly about it and being like, hey, you can use the Xbox adaptive controller on PlayStation. Why not?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of weird shit happening right now anyway.
Microsoft probably would be that way. I think PlayStation would be, we don't want your controller.
Yeah,
but
probably.
It was a very nice, heartwarming thing. That's kind of a spin-off of one kid's story that's been on commercials, I think, throughout the season. But it was really nice to see that. And it does bring up what you had mentioned when you had walked in today, which is that Microsoft is making these other weird moves. Like today was announced that they are having a speech at GDC in San Francisco in March about putting Xbox Live on Switch.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. And it's funny, man, because isn't this kind of what I had mentioned a few weeks ago or a month or so ago about why wouldn't Nintendo put Virtual Console on Xbox or PlayStation? This might seem like the first step in a symbiotic relationship, or another step in a symbiotic relationship between Microsoft and Nintendo that's actually been developing perhaps since that Fortnite commercial that they both had to kind of combine on. Something's going on over there.
It's definitely interesting.
These two companies.
Someday everybody should definitely keep an eye on.
Chris Irk Prime wrote in us and said, play Kingdom Hearts 3.
Over
my dead body, am I ever going to play that game?
But
you have been playing it. So why?
Because my roommate has been playing it and he got sick of it.
I like the video you put up of him. He was playing like it looked like some sort of match 3 of a Jewel type game.
There are mini games in it that are essentially mobile games, and it just loops the most infuriating music. And he was just down for the count, downright confused, confuddled
about why he was spending his life like this.
Yeah, he had a brief moment of like serenity and like realization.
Now people are enjoying the game. My 8-year-old nephew's enjoying the game very much, but I'm wondering, and I don't mean as an insult. That's the only person I know in my immediate family here that is playing the game. But you have endeavored to play it, and I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here, but we might as well talk about what we're playing now, Chris, because I want to hear what you think of Kingdom Hearts 3.
It's a game. It's totally fine. I think I'm getting enjoyment out of it in a way that probably wasn't really the intention. I like a lot of the hokey voice acting, and I get a good laugh out of a lot of the narrative elements that I just don't understand because I'm so lost and haven't played the previous ones. There's a scene, there's a lot of like, oh no, you know, kind of like really Saturday morning kind of delivery. There is something kind of charming about it, I will say. I think I get it more now than I did previously. I still wouldn't consider myself a fan of it.
What is happening in the game?
So you're an anime boy, and you meet up with Donald and Goofy, and you go through different Disney worlds. There's a Hercules world. There's a Toy Story world. I don't really. You're fighting bosses. I don't really know, to be honest, and that's what's kind of amusing about it. Is that it's just kind of this constant roller coaster of. It just feels like a blender, like you're in a blender, and you're like, what are all these ingredients, and why are they together? But it's still somehow like a weird, amusing experience.
Surprises me to hear you say this. I mean, that's great that you're enjoying Kingdom Hearts 3, and it's quickly become your game of the year. I understand how you feel.
Game of the year.
Good for you. Well, that's
my
exciting.
favorite.
Good for you to keep an open mind. So how far are you in Kingdom Hearts 3?
I don't know. I honestly stopped.
So you're not playing it anymore?
Yeah, not really. It's my friend's game. I didn't want to like
monopolize
steal his.
He had the physical version of the game?
Yeah. So.
Well, you can go out and buy your own copy if you're really feeling compelled by it.
Yeah, maybe not.
$60 game for Kingdom Hearts 3. Well, I'm playing Metro Last Light Redux. I beat it. I'm just cleaning up the trophies. I've played it. I reviewed it back at IGN, so I've played it before, but just in preparation for Metro Exodus. I'm excited to play Metro Exodus when the time comes. You and I should have Anthem soon from EA. I've been talking to them, so that'll be exciting, and that'll be a game that you and I think will talk exhaustively about, especially you, I assume.
Yeah.
Nicholas Ray wrote into us and said, hey, CNC, with the next consoles just beyond the horizon and the possibilities of streaming older titles, would you ever consider reviewing or discussing older titles in a fresh light? Bloodborne comes to mind. Well, Nicholas, with Metro Last Light Redux, which came out in 2014, as far as I remember, we are doing that here on the show when the games make sense. We're going back and playing old games. So I don't think we're going to ever go out of our way to do something like that. But when the games come up and it makes sense, we'll talk to you about them. Last week, I talked to you about Metro 2033. This week, Metro Last Light. Old games. So there you go. Talking about Bloodborne. Why do you guys want to talk about Bloodborne so much? Haven't you had enough?
People like Bloodborne.
Haven't you had just enough of Bloodborne for now?
I was at a party recently and they were playing Bloodborne.
They were playing Bloodborne at a party.
Yeah.
Sounds like a riveting.
It was a good time.
It was a good party?
Yeah, it was good.
You guys having a nice little time over there?
Yeah, I brought up the Honeycomb Crazy Craving mascot. You remember him?
The Honeycomb from the cereal?
Yeah, from the chinchilla thing that was like, his name was Crazy Craving.
Yeah, he was a psychopath.
I was high and I remembered it for some reason. I brought it up and everybody. They kicked me out.
I didn't know you got high. You like to get high sometimes?
Sometimes.
Yeah. I also like to get high, so that's a really good thing for us.
I've heard.
Yeah, it's also a really good thing for people to know about it. Now, Danny Atkinson wrote into us, Chris, and said, I'm very disappointed that you failed to shed light on the biggest news story in all of gaming this week, the petition to put Shaggy in Mortal Kombat 11. How do you feel about this? I'm torn, because I, as anyone else, will want to play as Shaggy, but I also know that he would be able to defeat every other character with one hit.
I hate this.
Bad joke.
I hate this Shaggy thing.
But this is a real thing. I went and looked this up and I was like, oh, there's some sort of thing online with 500,000 signatures, some sort of petition to get Shaggy from Scooby-Doo in Mortal Kombat 11, a dead serious thing.
Yeah, it's a real thing because of the meme recently.
What is the meme?
I guess there's a clip of a Scooby-Doo movie where Shaggy or an episode of a Scooby-Doo show, I don't know, whichever one, but there's a clip where Shaggy's in a biker bar and he beats up a biker gang.
Wow.
With no effort. So the joke is that they've been like putting him as like a Super Saiyan and like how he's like unbeatable, and it's all very predictable.
Now, this is the old Scooby-Doo, or is there a Scooby-Doo thing that's now
I guess
modern?
There's like a more recent-ish one.
Let me ask you this. Or I'm not even gonna, it's a proclamation.
There's been like 600 incarnations of Scooby-Doo, in fairness.
Why does anyone care about Scooby-Doo? Have you ever really thought deeply about like what?
I liked it when I was a kid.
But it's fine. It's one of those things. Here's another example for you, Chris. Ghostbusters is a very good movie.
The first one, yeah.
Yeah. Why is there a fandom around all things Ghostbusters? It's the same thing with Scooby-Doo. I'm like, Scooby-Doo's fine. It's a fine cartoon to entertain you as a child. But why is there a Scooby-Doo fandom? You know what I mean? What did this do to earn that?
I don't know.
What did Ghostbusters do to earn a fandom as if there is more than 2 movies and a cartoon?
The first movie is a classic. I would agree with that, right? Would you agree that the first Ghostbusters is a classic?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing with Back to the Future 1, 2, and 3. They're fine. They're good.
Oh, I love those movies.
Oh my God, I can't.
You're crazy. You don't like Back to the Future?
I enjoy Back to the Future 1 and I enjoy Back to the Future 3. I don't like how there's like echoes throughout the movies, you know?
You know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I guess not. Chris, should we get into the news?
Yeah, let's get back on topic.
Number 1, Sony's Q3 financial quarter ended on December 31st, and the financial report for that 3-month period, which was recently released, shows solid performance by the PlayStation brand and by Sony as a whole. Sony's whole operation showed a nearly $3 billion profit for the quarter, with overall revenue down 10%, but profit up nearly 45%. Sony's so-called gaming division noted a 10% increase in overall sales, but a lower profit margin. When it comes to PlayStation, Sony is making megabucks in 2 notable ways, according to website WCCF Tech. One way is through game software, digitally sold, which accounted for more than a third of the total 87.2 million games sold on PS4 over Sony's third quarter. So in other words, Sony is selling tons of games now. More than a third of games sold now are digital games. This is an incredible increase as retail continues to suffer. And we'll talk a little bit about suffering retail later. So that's that. The other way is through PlayStation Plus subscriptions. 36.3 million people globally are paying subscribers, which is incredible. An all-time high number for PlayStation Plus's nearly decade-long history. Website Push Square reports that Sony's digital PlayStation Network-related services generated more in revenue, $12.5 billion in 2018, than Nintendo's entire operation did. The website also points out that PSN made more than all of the Xbox brand did as well for that entire period of time. With Sony's confirmation of 8.1 million PS4 shipped during their third quarter, PS4's overall sales numbers have reached 94.2 million shipped. That makes PS4 2018's best-selling console, beating Nintendo's Switch by 300,000 units.
That's crazy.
For the calendar year, so barely beat it.
Yeah.
Barely beat it. And in fact, some people had wrote in saying, actually, Switch outsold it, but Sony hadn't released their statement yet. Good numbers for PS4. I think that those numbers are impressive, Chris, especially because this is Switch's, Switch came out in early 2017, so it's 18-19, so that's its second holiday season.
Was it 2017 it came out?
Yeah.
Really?
March 2017, I believe, yeah.
Whoa. Holy hell.
Or late February, something like that. Yeah, I got it right before I left Kinda Funny. So Switch came out then, so it's gone through basically 2 years, and in Sony's 5th year, the PS4 has outsold the handheld. So not too shabby. Congratulations
not at
to
all.
all involved. And congratulations to Nintendo, too, by the way, which I believe Switch has now officially outsold N64. So as they continue to climb that ladder, last year they outsold GameCube, they outsold Wii U in like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And now they
Like
outsold the
immediately.
N64. So they're climbing. And the next console in its sights now is NES in terms of its sales numbers.
We'll see.
Number 2, this is the big news. And I'm glad that this broke before the podcast had aired because it didn't seem like the timing was going to line up for us to be able to talk about this. But it has. A free-to-play Titanfall game was just announced and released simultaneously, and you can play it on PlayStation 4. Better yet, or worse yet, depending on who you are, it's a battle royale title. The game is called Apex Legends, and it takes place in the Titanfall universe, though no familiar characters or titans are available to play. However, it otherwise borrows heavily from battle royale genre conventions, with up to 60 players per map spread across up to 3 teams. The game includes microtransactions, though they don't seem to be game-breaking, and publisher EA and developer Respawn have already mapped out a course through the rest of 2019 with what players can expect when they jump in over time. In an interview with Eurogamer, Respawn said something surprising, that this isn't a stopgap game, and that Titanfall 3 isn't in development. For now, this is what's next for the Titanfall universe. So the assumption Jason Schreier over Kotaku wrote, and I agreed with him, that the theories that he was hearing was that this game, Titanfall is built on a modified version of the Source engine.
Yeah.
Source is starting to look really antiquated, and I don't think they're going to be able to bring it to the next gen, at least intact. So the theory is that Titanfall 3 is looking so old, like whatever they were developing, that they needed to get this out first, and then Titanfall 3 would maybe be built on different architecture. But what it sounds like is that Respawn's building its Star Wars game.
Yeah.
Titanfall 3 morphed into this game, and that's all we know about what Respawn is doing.
I don't know if they were ever really making a Titanfall 3, given how messed up the launch for Titanfall 2 was.
It
and
could
how they
be.
sandwiched it in between those two massive launches.
Yeah, with Battlefield 1 really eating into it. For people that don't remember, back in 2016, Call of Duty, Battlefield 1, and obviously Battlefield 1's more relevant because that's an EA game, and then Titanfall 2 all came out within this really fucked up period.
Yeah.
And all three games had great campaigns. I enjoyed them all. But I've always been of the mind, especially because Titanfall launched on Xbox One exclusively and Xbox 360, some people forget, also exclusively, that we couldn't ever get that game to PlayStation because of publishing deals that they made before the consoles launched, and therefore we didn't have the full experience. And I kind of felt like Titanfall was kind of DOA after Titanfall 2. Like, this wasn't a franchise really worth pursuing anymore. I know a lot of people disagreed with me, but the numbers kind of spoke.
Yeah.
Played that out, especially for a studio as big as Respawn. So what do you make of this? Have you looked at the videos and all of this? I think there's a lot to say about this game, Apex Legends.
I've seen a little bit of it. I was watching it in the Uber over here, so it's a bit low res, but it kind of defeats the purpose of it being a Titanfall game to me. I appreciate the concept of Battle Royale as a genre. I think it's a good idea. But Fortnite is so stiff, and PUBG is so stiff, and Black Ops doesn't feel right. And I was actually, when I first heard about this, like, oh, it's a Titanfall Battle Royale game, I was actually pretty into it. Because, oh, yeah, I could use a fast-paced, grappling hook-infused, like, wall-running Titanfall Battle Royale game. That sounds awesome. But it doesn't seem like any of that's in there. It just seems like another, you just walk around with a gun. I feel like they missed an opportunity there to make something that actually kind of stood out a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like they also missed out on an opportunity to market this better because, I don't understand the idea. Now, it's exciting sometimes to think about games like the theory's always been with Half-Life 3, right, at Valve, that Half-Life 3 will literally come out when it's ready and they'll never announce it. It'll literally just show up on Steam one day, right? Like, people have been saying that for years.
Yeah.
I don't think the game's ever actually going to come out, but that was always the theory, was that, like, that's the perfect game to never even say anything about. Literally, you don't need to promote it. You don't need to have a preview cycle. You don't need to have it at E3. Just put it out and people will buy it. This game was rumored, and then I think Jeff Keighley was the only person to ever say anything officially about it, which he tweeted out during the Super Bowl that they would reveal it tomorrow, and I think because the leaks had started to happen. And apparently they showed it to YouTubers and Twitch streamers and people in high places. So it started to leak and started to kind of circulate. But my theory is this, Chris, and tell me if you follow along on this. This is the best way I can put it visually. And this is what I'm going to be calling the Apex theory, okay? And of course, Apex Theory was a great early 2000s band that I really loved, so I'm stealing that name. Now, the theory here is that every person interested in these games can be represented by a coin. It could be a 1 yen coin, it could be a penny, whatever. Yeah, it could be a loonie, right? If we want to appeal to our Canadians. And they're all distributed into these various piles right now, right? And they all kind of circulate between each other. So you have your Call of Duty pile, and you have your PUBG pile, and you have your Battlefield pile, and you have all these different piles. People playing Battlefront still. But all these people are similar to each other. Some piles are in waiting, like there's a Division 2 pile and all this kind of stuff. And now the Apex Legends game comes in and drops itself in and will certainly siphon off some of these coins that represent people from these other places.
Sure.
But my theory is that these games being created aren't manufacturing new fans that otherwise wouldn't have played these games and are now in. For instance, Titanfall is now a Battle Royale game. Now I'm going to play Battle Royale. You ignored PUBG. You ignored all these other games. You ignore all these other multiplayer games and online games and persistent games, and now you're in. Like, I don't think that that's happening. So my theory is that we are going to see a huge bottoming out of the Battle Royale genre sooner than you think. Even though some of these games like Fortnite, megabucks, they are making thousands of percent, tens of thousands of percent probably in profit. But not all these games are. And I just feel like they can't possibly compete with each other anymore. And these Battle Royale games just keep coming out. And they're going to start cannibalizing each other, no matter how good or how bad they are, to the point where only a few exist. Now, that's the market working. But I don't know why EA would get involved when they're already, by the way, involved with Battlefield 5 having a Battle Royale mode that they delayed. So now you are putting out another battle. This is exactly what they did to Titanfall in 2016. Don't you see? It is full circle for EA. It is full circle.
That's kind of wild. I forgot about that. I forgot about the delayed Firestorm mode or whatever.
It's the Apex theory. Now, I really feel like Titanfall would have been better served, regardless of their apparent need to generate revenue quicker, I guess. It would have been better served by getting a Titanfall 3 with a campaign and a multiplayer mode, and just making it a smaller budget game that doesn't require back-end support forever. And it just seems like a bad bet, or EA has put Respawn regardless of the Star Wars game, because who the fuck knows?
Yeah.
What's
we
going to
haven't
happen
seen
with that
anything
game
from it.
That's
so.
apparently still coming out this year.
They have put themselves in a spotlight that kind of seems reminiscent of Radical Heights, kind of, where it's like, oh, here's this random battle royale game to just kind of hopefully. It seems a little bit desperate. It looks, in fairness, it looks very decently put together. It doesn't look as thrown together as Radical Heights by any means, but I think just the fact that they were working on this at all is interesting enough. I don't necessarily think that people can't make a battle royale game that wouldn't draw in new fans. Like I said, I was actually into it when I thought that it would be basically the base gameplay from Titanfall 2, but with a battle royale, because I understand the appeal of it. I just hate the way all these games play because it's just people walking around. It's really one-dimensional. So it doesn't need to be a Titanfall game, is what I think. It's like they could have put out like some battle royale. If they were just going to make a battle royale where it's the same thing as Black Ops, basically, then why even have the name attached to it? Because it just kind of damages the brand, if anything.
Yeah, it's weird because it doesn't say Titanfall in the title at all on one hand, right? It's not Titanfall : Apex Legends or whatever. On the other hand, they are clearly trying to inject this in as a way for people to get in. I just really am a believer that because these games are so persistent and because they require so much skill and so much time, that people are becoming kind of dug in almost to their little ecosystems, it seems like to me. This just seems like a dangerous idea. I said it in the past that if you didn't have a battle royale game in development when PUBG was like a whisper, I feel like you're getting involved too late.
I think you're right, but I think that's more true of like The Division and like Anthem and games like that, where it's like more persistent shared world shooters as opposed to battle royale games where you just kind of jump in for like an hour and then you're done and then you could maybe go again. I don't think it's necessarily a death knell or that like you're making a mistake by going into battle royale, but making a battle royale that's basically just the same thing again, that's questionable to me. Especially when you had such an interesting game engine and such an interesting play style already there for you to just lift. It's just weird to me. I don't get it.
It's strange just in the sense to me. It's strange in actually another sense, Chris, which is that they're now creating another ecosystem for people to kind of get involved in on the eve of EA's massive launch of probably their biggest game in years.
Yeah, that's true.
So not only are they distracting everyone now in literally the days before Anthem starts to come out, because remember, people will start getting access to Anthem, I think, around the time this podcast comes out, depending on how you pre-ordered it. And I know, by the way, about that Anthem thing, I didn't even talk about it here, but that Anthem chart went out this week.
The chart with like how it ways to
People
play.
were being so dramatic about that. Such drama queens. It's not that complicated. It's literally like, what version of the game do you have? What is the date? And you match them up on a grid. It's like, I know people like to make fun of EA. I like to make fun of EA all the time too, but when I saw that, I'm like, all right, we can let the drama go, guys. It's not, you're not splitting an atom here.
I don't know. I thought the chart was kind of funny.
It was ridiculous, but people were making it to be like, what a confusing, confounding marketing point. I'm like,
it's not a befuddling
what are you, in
chart.
second grade?
It's not a befuddling chart or anything, but it's amusing that they felt the need to even. The way they're handling that launch is still very bizarre to me. That you would even need to put out a chart. When was the last time you saw a chart for a game launch?
No, not for a launch.
I mean?
Usually you get it for just collector's edition specifically. Does this collector's edition have the game? That's my favorite part about every collector's edition. Nonetheless.
Oh, yeah. I think that's a good idea, by the way, the collector's edition not having the game.
You like that?
That's a controversial opinion, I think, but I think it's a good idea. Because it means people can get all the weird shit without actually having to make a commitment to what platform they're going to play on.
Yeah, you said that in the past. That's actually a great point. Or they can give you like some sort of agnostic key or something that you can then go on their website and say like, I want this version of the game. And then they'll manufacture you a key or something like that. Or you can just commit. Number 3, Sony has revealed February's free PlayStation Plus games, and they'll be available by the time you hear this podcast for you to download, so long as you have an active PS Plus subscription. On PlayStation 4, you'll gain access to stealth game Hitman's entire first season, as well as multiplayer-centric third-person action game For Honor. On PlayStation 3, players can get fighting game Dive Kick, which I always hated that game, an early PS3 exclusive Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots, which is now trophy-enabled, by the way. While on Vita, arcade shooter Gunhouse and side-scrolling bombing game Rogue Aces are free. Dive Kick can also be downloaded onto Vita, while Gunhouse and Rogue Aces is also available on PS4. Sony also made an additional note this month. As you might recall, as of March 2019, next month, PS3 and Vita games will no longer be offered as free PS Plus perks, making these PS3 and Vita games the last ones we'll ever see on the service. To balance this out, cloud storage for game saves is now increasing. Cloud saving is an underrated part of PS Plus, one many of us use, but rarely talk about it. And now that space has been expanded from 10 gigabytes to 100 gigabytes for your saves. Tony Colton wrote in and said, hey guys, With the announcement that PS Plus cloud storage is being increased from 10 gigabytes to 100 gigabytes, do you guys think this gives any clues to where the PlayStation platform is headed for next gen? This is an interesting question, Tony. I don't think it is. I have a shit ton of games and many saves in that cloud, and I don't think I'm anywhere near the 10 gigabyte thing. So that was a whole, I'm like, who's saving this many saves?
Yeah.
I have more games than almost anyone, I would assume, listening to the show, and more saves just based on my access over time. And I don't think I've ever deleted any saves.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I even needed this space.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like a basic hardware thing. It's like, the next console comes out, it goes from 500 gigabytes to 1 terabyte. It just seems like a basic kind of, hey, let's put more numbers on this so it's more up to date, I guess.
I can't imagine I'd ever get to that space. And I use the cloud saving, like, first of all, it automatically backs up, but I use it religiously just because I'm always afraid of my console dying.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And the amount of fury that would rise up in me if I lost saves that I was in the middle of, like how that would just put me off of a game. But they did say something weird, Chris, and I'm trying to look it up on the PlayStation blog, because there is this thing that I don't know if I'm interpreting this right. If I'm interpreting this in a certain way, it's really not good.
All right, what is it? What is it?
I'm trying to I want to find the original quote. There it is. Okay, so this is from the PlayStation Plus blog post about, revealing the games. Here's what they say at the end. This month's PS3 and PS Vita games will be available for a few extra days until March 8th, 2019. PS4 games will be available until March 5th, 2019 when the next monthly games lineup hits. As a reminder, after March 8th, 2019, PS3 and PS Vita games will no longer be offered as part of the PS Plus monthly games lineup, so be sure to download them while they're available. Any PS3 and PS Vita games you've already downloaded or will download prior to March 8th, 2019 will still be a part of your PS Plus games library as long as you remain a member. I don't know if I'm reading this right. I don't think I am.
What do you
because
think that
what
implies?
It seems to be implying is that you have to physically have the games on your console or handheld by that point. Because typically you would just be able to mark them for download and they would always enter your chart forever so you can download them later. It says, any PS3 and PS Vita games you've already downloaded or will download prior to March 8th, 2019 will still be part of your PS Plus games library as long as you remain a member.
Huh, yeah. That is worded bizarrely.
PS3 and PS Vita free games go back almost a decade.
Yeah.
Especially for PS3. PS Vita is not that old. We're going back 8 years or so with free games. And are they saying that we now have to go and physically download them all?
That's what it sounds like, honestly.
Because I thought the idea was that they would just be there.
That's the idea that I'm getting from the way they worded it, yeah.
Or is it like you're just adding them to your download list?
But they wouldn't say or will download.
If that's true, that means that any Vita game you have for free now, you need to get on your Vita now. And you better hope that your Vita doesn't crash or anything like that, or you need to.
That would be weird if they did that though. Like that's definitely what they're saying, but like maybe it's a mistake, or maybe it's just like poor translation. I don't know. That's pretty wild. If that's actually what they're doing, if they're being like you got to download 2,000 terabytes of games.
I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there just in case. We'll try to follow up on that.
Yeah.
And see what happens. But Tony did ask the question, is this show where the platform is headed?
No.
There might be games, like especially persistent games, that use tons of space, but I can't imagine a save even using more than 100 megabytes or something. I mean, how badly programmed does a game have to be to use that much space? Typically, like a Metro Last Light save is like 10 megabytes. But yeah, I guess, it's something. The bigger thing is what are they going to replace these games with? Will they replace it with more PS4 games? Will they replace it with PSVR games? Are they not going to replace it at all? We'll see what happens.
You got a lot to think about.
But it's cool that Metal Gear Solid 4 is free. Although I have to also say this, Chris, before we move on, because I did go and bitch and whine about this on Twitter, so I want to bitch and whine about it here just to make sure everyone hears me bitching and whining. This would have been a really great opportunity for Sony to celebrate PS3 and Vita. Now, I know that they don't want to ever acknowledge Vita ever again, and they are tired of PS3 as well, but I said online, I'm like, this lineup sucks for PS3 and Vita games. Metal Gear is cool, but wouldn't this have been a really awesome opportunity for them to be like, listen, we're not going to get PS3 and Vita games anymore. So every week, we're going to release 2 or 3 new games for those platforms that you can download for that week. They're all going to be first-party, massive games. We're going to give you the Uncharted trilogy. We're going to give you the Resistance trilogy. We're going to give you, on Vita, we're going to give you Freedom Wars, and then bigger third-party games like Persona. We're going to give you everything. Because what are they really losing? And celebrate, get people involved, like have blog posts and retrospectives.
But they're the top dog. They don't need to do that. That's why they're not doing that, is because they feel no need to engage people like that because they're already selling boatloads.
I know, but and some people are saying like also a lot of people probably don't even take advantage of the PS3 and Vita games. And I'm like, I know, but don't they look at things through the lens of fun? This is supposed to be like a fun thing, right? So like, don't you want to be like, hey, we're blowing it out. We're giving you 10 PS3 games and 10 Vita games this month.
I don't think they put that much thought into it, really. They probably have a dartboard.
Yeah.
It's probably one of those situations.
It probably is. I just would have loved it because some people were like, oh, it would have cost them so much money for nothing. And I'm like, it would have cost them $0. They published those games. I think it would have been a fun way to just celebrate, the heritage. Because as I said on social media, PlayStation 3 gamers and Vita gamers were the ones that proved PlayStation Plus was viable when everyone was making fun of it. Because as you will recall, people shit on PlayStation Plus for years.
Oh, yeah.
And there were those of us out there being like, it's actually a really great value if you're really engaged because of the free games and the discounts and all this. So I just think it would have been cool to do a full circle thing. To have been like, hey, we're going to give all this stuff away for free and show you our appreciation. But why would we do that? Well, we can give you Rogue Aces and Dive Kick. Dive Kick, the fighting game where you can only jump and kick the enemy. I couldn't stand that game.
It's a classic.
I couldn't stand it.
I never played it.
It was like that game. What was that game? Octodad?
Oh, I love that game.
Oh, I couldn't handle it.
Oh, I love that game. It's so frustrating.
This is fun for 5 minutes. And then it becomes a complete act of frustration. No, because
then you get kind of good at it, and you're like, what the hell is this? Why am I understanding this?
That game infuriated me, like, to the deep inside.
Oh, now you know what to submit for the Let's Plays.
Oh, man. Don't do that. Although I already own it, so I don't have to buy a $30 game like we did with YouTuber's Life OMG. Coming soon.
Good Lord.
Number 4, as predicted right here on this show, developer Quantic Dream has revealed it will no longer be a PlayStation exclusive second-party studio, which it had been up to this point for more than a decade. PS3's Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls, which launched in 2010 and 2013 respectively, were followed by PS4's Detroit Become Human in 2018 as Quantic Dream's trilogy of PlayStation exclusives delivered in a reasonable cadence with varying results. The French team, well known for its adventure games, revealed that Chinese company NetEase has purchased a minority stake of the studio, and that their goal moving forward is to launch on multiple platforms. Last summer, NetEase purchased a minority stake in another gaming developer, Bungie, the studio originally behind Halo and currently behind Destiny. Quantic Dream told Variety that their, quote, objective is to be present on all platforms where there is an audience that can enjoy our experiences. We will, of course, continue developing on PlayStation, a platform that we know very well after having worked with Sony for 12 years, but we will also be present on all other relevant platforms, end quote. Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, and Detroit Become Human were funded by Sony, and those IP are owned by Sony, so Quantic Dream can't take those titles with them, but they can start developing their new IP with NetEase's capital infusion starting now. Nielsen Chapman wrote into us on Patreon, Chris, and he says, fellas, with Quantic Dream going multi-platform and Sony losing that exclusive, doesn't it make sense for them to tie up Supermassive Games now for an exclusive walking simulator as a second party? Until Dawn was, in my opinion, one of PS4's top 10 exclusives, and they could make something great for next gen. Thanks for the great work. First of all, what do you think of this Quantic Dream leaving? This is something that I called a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
It was obvious that Quantic Dream and Sony were done with each other.
Oh, for sure.
And I think especially that Sony was done with Quantic Dream. I don't know that
It's a very drama-infused studio.
Yeah, exactly. But do you think that they are losing something by not having Quantic? To put the numbers in perspective, Detroit was successful, but it sold fewer than 3 million copies. As a PS4 exclusive with some commercials and some marketing push, it did significantly worse than Spider-Man and God of War. Maybe not a huge surprise, but I don't know that Quantic Dream is really that important to lock down because I think that PlayStation fans will still play their games. The games are still going to be on PlayStation platforms. Does it really matter if they're also on Xbox and PC? Yeah,
no, it doesn't matter. Those games are still exclusive, and I think it's probably a better move for Quantic Dream to be as present on as many platforms as possible as opposed to being an exclusive studio, just because the style of game that they make is so niche. And you'd ideally want that kind of experience to be available to everybody who could possibly be interested in it, as opposed to just one platform that kind of locks it away from everybody else. So I think it's more of a Quantic Dream decision than it is like a Sony detriment, you know?
To me, Chris, it's interesting that Quantic Dream and Sony were married when it made the most sense. I think Sony was keen and wise to get involved with them when they did, because at that time, there really wasn't anything like what they were doing. But now there are plenty of games, and the Chinese Room and others have made games that are pretty similar in these walking simulator type games. They're not as like butterfly effect infused, except for what Supermassive did with Until Dawn, which was very much a Quantic Dream game. Now, Nielsen asks, should they lock down Supermassive? I think that window is done now because, as far as I understand, Supermassive is working on now a sequence of games with Bandai Namco that will be multi-platform as well. For me, I look at it and I'm like, Sony seems to have a relationship with Supermassive already with Until Dawn. They did that Until Dawn PSVR game. They did another PSVR game. I think that they still have people working with Sony, so we could still get a PlayStation exclusive game out of them. But I think the locking down Supermassive stuff has kind of already come and gone. And again, I don't know if that would have been a wise move for them or not. And I don't know if they would have made a different decision had they known that Quantic was actually going to walk. But again, I think that the writing was on the wall for Quantic Dream and Sony. I think that they're tired of each other. And as you guys know, Quantic Dream is a studio that's embroiled in some lawsuits, and some accusations of improprieties and whatnot. I don't think Sony wants to be involved in that stuff. So they move on.
Yeah, seems like the best course of action for both of them, honestly.
But I'll be interested to see what they come up with next. It'll be weird to not see them, well, I guess I should back up and say it'll be weird to see their games on Xbox. It's been a long time. I think, God, what was the last game?
Indigo
Prophecy.
Did they do that?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Which was called Fahrenheit, depending on where you live. And before that, I think they had a Dreamcast game, right? Nomad or something like that? I don't know.
No, I don't know. You're the Dreamcast guy.
You were a young man when Dreamcast came out.
I was. My cousin had it, and I played Time Crisis on it, I think.
No.
It was great.
You like your light gun shooters?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Number 5. A new patent filing from Sony could indicate that PlayStation 5 will not only be backwards compatible with PlayStation 4 games, but may also be backwards compatible with PS3, PS2, and even PS1 games too. According to website Push Square, the details of the patent suggest that Sony is pursuing technology that could conceivably allow the PlayStation 5, quote, to mimic the behavior of previous consoles using multiple processors. In other words, when a game is booted up, the PS5 tricks the software into thinking that it's running on the original device, end quote. Sony holds enormous numbers of patents and patents things all the time that it never uses or even intends on using. And this could be another one of those types of filings. However, with PS5 in the works and backwards compatibility on the tips of everyone's tongue, it stands to reason that this somehow plays into that presumed initiative. Kyle Goodrich wrote into us on Patreon, said, "Hey, Colin and Chris. Predictably, you two were right about the planned backwards compatibility with the recent news that Sony patented it for PS5. I want to be clear, Kyle, that this patent might have nothing to do with anything. What was surprising is that this compatibility will seemingly be all 4 of the main PlayStation consoles, not just the PS4. Obviously, things frequently change, but it seems to be this Sony's intention currently. What are your thoughts on this? To me, it makes the clear irrelevance of the PS Classic even more glaring, but more importantly, I'm thrilled to potentially get my PS3 library back as mine broke down long ago. Thanks, guys. You two make my Tuesdays so much more enjoyable. Thank you, Kyle, for your kind words and your inquiry." First of all, Chris, do you think that this is something they're really going to do? I don't see any reason to do this unless it's a digital solution, because who is really going to start putting PS1 games or PS2 games, physical games, into their PS5?
Oh, me.
You're going to be one of 10 people that's going to do that.
I'm definitely a minority, 100%. But I have those discs, and I would love to play them in the original, especially because like a lot of the remasters kind of mess things up. A lot of the Dragon Ball games have completely different soundtracks. I don't know what the hell they did. But I'd imagine they probably are working on some kind of backwards compatibility for this. I question the nature of them developing software or hardware that tricks the console.
But I wonder if it's an eloquent way of saying that they're going to run emulators. Like, I don't understand why that's so unrealistic. You know, I don't understand engineering at all, but it seems like it's somewhat unrealistic, or at least very difficult to make emulators, like for these digital offerings, for instance. But I still, just because it's hard doesn't mean it shouldn't be done. Sony makes a lot of money and they should have the best engineers that should be able to figure these things out. But yeah, I don't know that I buy this. There are patents I've reported on over the years that do all sorts of things, and nothing ever comes of it. And why would they need to patent a backwards compatibility thing when it's running on the same architecture, presumably, and they can just put PS4 games into the new console and it should work fine. So I don't know.
If it is backwards compatibility with like CD games from like the PS1 era, I suppose that could be like an interesting bit of new technology. It does seem a little bit weird, like the way it's worded, especially like how it's tricking the console. Like that seems weird.
And again, that wording, and I'm not trying to throw Push Square, the website, under the bus because we love them. I use them all the time to get news, but it could be their wording too. I looked at the patent, and it's, first of all, it's in Japanese, so I can't read it. And second of all, I don't understand this. I don't understand the schematics. So engineers and people that are intelligent with their left brain can look at this and probably
let them figure that out.
Yeah, it's not for me to figure out.
I mean, it'd be nice. It'd be probably one of the few things that they could do to make the PS5 at all appealing, because right now the PS4 has got such a good momentum. I wonder if they're going to have a hard time following this up.
I have a bad feeling about everything. I've been saying that for a while.
I have a bad feeling about everything, Colin Moriarty.
I mean, I have literally everything, but with PlayStation 5, I have a bad feeling about what's going on with that console and what's going on with Sony. You can just see signs of weirdness.
Yeah.
From my perspective, just really weird shit happening. I hope I'm wrong.
We'll have to see.
Number 6, Skybound, the parent company of the Walking Dead brand and the savior of Telltale Games' Walking Dead series, which wouldn't have been finished without them, has revealed when the final episode of the final season of the game is coming out, and therefore when the entire Walking Dead game arc that began way back in 2012 will finally conclude. Episode 4, which is called Take Us Back, will launch on March 26th alongside a physical version of the final season that will be available for PS4 and elsewhere. You can continue to purchase the episodes individually if you'd like, and can also take advantage of a season pass-like purchase on PSN to get the episodes already available, and the one episode yet to be released when March 26th rolls around. So that arc will be concluding about 6 years or so after it began, which is pretty interesting, and I know a lot of people are really excited about that. So
yeah, it's cool.
I'm playing around with in my mind. I only played the first season, so I'm playing and the 500 day or 400 days, whatever it was called, like the intermediary episode.
Yeah.
But I never played season 2 or season 3, so maybe I'll go back and start them all again. I played on PS3 and Vita, so I'm going to need to start again on PS4, which will be fine. I don't remember anything that happened anyway. Number 7. Publisher 2K has revealed the creation of a new AAA studio in its family, and it's being helmed by a pretty significant figure. Michael Condrey, who co-founded Call of Duty-driven team Sledgehammer Games, and before that was CEO of Dead Space creator Visceral Games, will lead this new yet unnamed team, according to 2K parent company Take-Two Interactive. The studio will be in Silicon Valley, just south of San Francisco, and joins the 2K studio family, including the likes of Hangar 13, Fair Access, and others. And the launch of the new game, while not commented on, is almost certainly next gen. So
for sure.
We don't know anything about that, but 2K is expanding its small portfolio of studios, and we can look forward to that as well. It's a big get.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
I've met Michael Condrey a few times, and he's a pretty smart dude. And Sledgehammer is a pretty well-respected studio. So, number 8, retailer GameStop could be in serious financial peril. The company, which reported losses last quarter amounting to $488.6 million, was searching for a buyer or some sort of capital infusion with 2 famous groups in the running. And these were both venture capital firms. But as IGN points out, that $488.6 million loss comes packing a $700 million profit from GameStop's sale of its Spring Mobile brand, meaning that without that sale, GameStop would have posted a loss well in excess of $1 billion. Business Insider notes that GameStop stock is now trading at a 14-year low after a precipitous 1-week drop in value of 27.6%.
Whoa.
GameStop's statement about the lack of sale read in part that, quote, GameStop's board has now terminated efforts to pursue a sale of the company due to the lack of available financing on terms that would be commercially acceptable to a prospective acquirer.
This
End
is
quote.
nuts.
I think GameStop's death spiral might be happening before our very eyes.
Oh, yeah.
I was reading a little bit about their financials in preparation for this, and console sales there are up, but interestingly, pre-owned sales are down and down noticeably, and that's where they make most of their profit. I think over the next year, Chris, we're going to see GameStop start shuttering stores, and I think this is the beginning of the end for the company, personally. I don't know how they can possibly compete.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner, to be honest.
Me too. It's sad because I know people but you'll still have your Walmarts and your Targets and your Costco's and all those places you can still buy games that are big box stores if you want to go in person, and your toy stores and all of that. And then you'll have your online retailers that will take good care of you too, like Amazon. So I don't know, man. It's the end of an era, or the ending of an era.
It's kind of sad. I mean, I spent a lot of time going to GameStop, and I like it, I guess. But I've been ripped off so many times. So it's very, off balance.
It's like I said, I think, on the show, when I went to buy Super Mario Odyssey, which was the last time I went to a GameStop. So this was a year and a half ago. There was a guy in front of me selling his Assassin's Creed games, and they were literally offering him like less than $1 for some of them, and he was selling them. Yeah. And part of me wanted to be like, dude, I'll just take it. Like having an Xbox 360 version of Assassin's Creed 3, you're going to get literally 50 cents for it. I'll just put it in a box somewhere, and it'll just be this old game one day that'll inherently be worth more than 50 cents. Guys, if you're selling your games for that little, just hold them.
Yeah. Yeah, just keep
And
them.
if you need 50 cents that badly to buy a game, you shouldn't be buying games.
Yeah, keep in mind, you can sell, there are PS1 games that go for like $50 for some reason. Blows my mind. But you can sell them on eBay for like a ridiculous markup.
This is a weird one. This is one of the weirdest pieces of news we've ever had. This upcoming on the entire show so far, 32 episodes. Number 9, Sony has revealed a sequel to the 1993 Bill Murray film Groundhog Day, and it's a VR game set to come to PlayStation VR later in 2019. The game is under development at Tequila Works, the Spanish studio best known for the 2012 game Deadlight, and more recently 2017's Rime, which, as you may recall, was originally developed as a PS4 exclusive before Sony relinquished the rights to the game back, likely due to development trouble. So as you guys might remember, there was a story about Tequila Works about how people from Sony apparently came in and just took all of their dev kits one day. This was back in 2016 or 2015 or something like that, because the game was not shaping up. There was some drama with them. So they're still apparently working together. The film takes place around Phil Connors, a weatherman, and the game, which has a subtitle Like Father, Like Son, puts players in the role of Phil Connors Jr., Phil's son. This is weird.
This is the strangest.
But kind of cool.
I mean, it's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. Groundhog Day is not only a film that I didn't want to see a sequel to, but I also didn't ever think about a game about. But I guess VR does kind of make sense for it.
It does.
In the sense that, maybe I don't know, would it be just like the same kind of events happening over and over again, and you can affect them in different ways?
I guess so. It seems what it's like, yeah.
It seems like kind of like maybe a neat idea. I just find it so weird that they even bothered to tie it to Groundhog Day in the first place.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
They could have just taken the concept and been like, this is a new VR game.
And they announced it on Groundhog Day. Like, this was like some junior marketing guy's like big push over at Sony.
Guys really patting himself on the back.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, good job, dude.
Look what I did.
So wouldn't it have made more sense to release a movie sequel to Groundhog Day where it was just the original Groundhog Day, but they never said anything about it? Like one day,
oh my God, that'd
one
be
day
great.
Commercials just start appearing, and then the movie's back in the theaters, and it's just the same movie,
but
without anyone saying it.
And
it's just called Groundhog's Day 2. Yeah,
that's a great idea.
Yeah. See, I'm always thinking.
That's a great idea that would get you fired.
Yes. Finally, number 10 is a wrap-up, Chris.
All right.
Underwater exploration game Subnautica's surprise sequel, Below Zero, which was announced and released last week on PC, is coming to PS4, quote, as soon as possible, end quote, according to a tweet from Subnautica's PlayStation account. Website Gamatsu reports that RPG Always Awakening, which looks awesome, is PS4 bound sometime later in February or in March. PS4 match game Crystal Crisis has been delayed from April to May. Roguelite RPG Unexplored is coming to PS4 on February 19th. And MOBA Arena of Valor has been rated on PS4 by the European Games Rating Board, all but confirming its imminent launch. Push Square notes that party game Move or Die is PS4 bound in March. Capcom confirmed that in its first year on the market, Monster Hunter World sold 11 million copies, making it Capcom's best-selling game ever. And finally, Capcom also revealed that Resident Evil 2 Remake sold more than 3 million copies in its first week on the market, beating Resident Evil 7, which came out in early 2017, by about 500,000 copies during the same period of time. So a remake of a game from 1998 beat the new Resident Evil game, which in my estimation is better than Resident Evil 2 Remake, but hey, to each his own. Forrest Hunter wrote into us, Chris, and said, "Hi, gentlemen. As of this writing, RE2 has sold more than 3 million copies and is looking to be more popular than RE7. Where do you guys see Capcom taking the series? RE3 Remake? RE8? With this latest game setting a benchmark for remakes and reimaginings, what are some games you'd like to see get a similar treatment?"
I mean, I'd like to see Resident Evil going forward just kind of take this, because Resident Evil 2 feels a lot like Resident Evil 4, but like more horror. Like Resident Evil 4 was very action kind of oriented. There's like horror in it, I guess. But I would like to see that play style, like the over-the-shoulder, slow-paced kind of methodical walkthrough, but with a genuine horror atmosphere. I think it's cool. Because I don't know. I didn't jive well with the first person of RE7 personally. As far as like a remake, I can't imagine what could possibly be remade that I would want that hasn't already been remade. Maybe the original Silent Hill, given a treatment like this, could be pretty sick. But I feel like I've got everything I want.
That would be cool as hell.
Yeah.
With Konami's kind of reluctance to do anything anymore, with the exception of random releases like Castlevania Requiem, what would be really interesting is if they broke bread with Capcom. Silent Hill and Resident Evil were old rivals back in the day. And what would be cool is if, with Capcom's expertise and Konami's kind of IP, Konami was like, listen, let's collaborate. We'll give you the IP and the source code and all that kind of stuff, and you guys remake Silent Hill 2, for instance, which is considered, I think, the classic in the series. That will never happen, but it would be interesting to see that. As far as what they should do next, I think Resident Evil 3 is obviously needs to be remade, and I think the sales speak clearly enough that, and I said this I think last week, Chris, it might even behoove you to somehow go back and fix RE1 Remake again. Just get rid of the weird controls and stuff. Like the very act of moving and shooting is so nice.
Yeah.
And it's not tanky. So it'd be cool to go back and kind of retroactively tweak that a little bit and re-release it. But RE3 is clearly going to get a remake, I think. And RE8 is clearly going to come out as well. So as far as games, similar games, Dead Space.
That's so I get sad when I think about that game.
Arguably the greatest survival horror game ever, in my estimation.
You think so?
Yeah. I love Dead Space. I think Dead Space is pretty perfect.
It's been a while since I played it, but I don't disagree with you.
10 years old now. I think even more than that. If you're looking for some new sweatpants, shorts, t-shirts, socks, underwear, or the like, Mack Weldon may just be for you. Mack Weldon is a website for men's clothing that's easy to browse, with premium products that emphasize comfort and quality, while still remaining both functional and stylish. I recently grabbed some sweatpants and a t-shirt from Mack Weldon, and I have to say, I was impressed. The website is straightforward and easy to use, the sizing charts make sense, and if I'm being totally honest, and I am, the sweatpants in particular are perhaps the most comfortable pair of sweatpants I've ever owned. And that's saying something since I play video games and podcast about them for a living, and I'm often lounging around in various states of undress. Of course, Mack Weldon's vast array of garments means you have scores of options. And since shopping for clothing online can be a bit nerve-wracking, what with mysterious sizes and fittings and all, Mack Weldon also accepts free returns within 30 days, no questions asked. To try Mack Weldon for yourself and receive 20% off your first order, head to MackWeldon.com and use the code SACRED at checkout. That's MackWeldon.com, MackWeldon.com, with the checkout code SACRED, SACRED. Chris, that's all we have for news. We have the new game releases to get through if you'd like. Question is, would you like to begin or would you like to go second?
I didn't count it all to see if there's any crazy Japanese things, but I'll just go first.
Okay.
Access Denied comes to PS4 and PS Vita. Access Denied is a puzzle game where personal data is locked away in protected boxes, calling all safecrackers and puzzle game lovers. From rotating dials, inputting numbers, and other commands, your work will be cut out for you.
Huh. Could be interesting on Vita. I'll have to look into that.
Could be interesting in PSVR, honestly. Sounds like a really cool idea.
Ages of Mages, The Last Keeper comes to PS4. The kingdom is under attack and the princess has been taken. Ages of Mages, The Last Keeper is a TPS beat-em-up game, I guess third-person shooter, for up to 4-player local co-op. Can our 4 mages assume the responsibility of guardian and reinvigorate the ages of the mages? It's pretty badly written.
Yeah.
All told.
That's not a great
Or I
summary.
just wasn't reading it very well. I mean, it could be that too.
Away, Journey to the Unexpected comes to PS4. Welcome to a feel-good FPS. A colorful adventure combining action, negotiation, and roguelite elements. Befriend and play a large variety of quirky characters, all against the backdrop of the anime-themed soundtrack by Kazuhiko Naruse.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Very nice.
Jesus Christ.
I knew you'd fall into the trap eventually.
Immediately, like that's the second one.
Befriend and play a large variety of quirky characters. Welcome to a feel-good FPS. So I've always wanted to feel good. And I've always wanted to negotiate as well, as it says you can negotiate.
I love negotiation.
Crisis Brigade comes to PSVR. That's
Crisis, VR with a capital VR.
Brigade. Crisis Brigade is a virtual reality action-filled first-person shooter that lets players take on the role of a SWAT trooper and deal with a hostage situation in a bank robbery. You got the highest rates at the Academy. It's time to prove it.
Elk Simulator comes to PS4. Challenging elk hunting taken to another level. Hunt in one of the 3 world venues to include the United States, Canada, or New Zealand in search of trophy elk. Who's going to be the next elk hunting legend?
Chances are neither of us will be.
Yeah, probably not.
That, of course, will be an option for you to let us play as well on our Let's Play.
Yeah, Elk Simulator.
Evoland Legendary Edition comes to PS4. Evoland Legendary Edition brings you 2 unique RPGs with their graphic style and gameplay changing as you progress. Full of humor and references to classic games, the Evolved series brings a truly epic and extraordinary adventure. I think those games look pretty cool, actually. I might check them out, yeah.
Fear of Bugs, the Fear Experience, comes to PSVR. Our laboratory conducts various researches on fear. This research is fear resistance to cockroaches. You are exposed to the fear of various cockroaches in an enclosed space. Can you bear the fear of cockroaches until the end?
You were really falling
What?
apart. You were really falling apart on that one.
Because it's just so many cockroaches.
I know. Does this take place in Chris's apartment?
Yeah, it feels like it. Good lord. Except there's no fear, it's just hate.
Hate and acceptance.
Yeah, hate and acceptance.
It's called Accept the Bugs, the acceptance experience. Glass Masquerade comes to PS4, an artistic puzzle game inspired by Art Deco and stained glass artisans of the 20th century. Combine hidden glass pieces to unveil clocks and themes exhibited by various cultures of the world at an interactive electronic show.
God Eater 3 comes to PS4. Set in a post-apocalyptic setting, it's up to your special team of God Eaters to take down godlike monsters devastating the world. With an epic story, unique characters, and all new God arcs and origami, the latest evolution in action is here.
I feel like this game has been coming forever. God Eater 1 and 2, I think they were on Vita or PSP.
Were they?
Yeah. Maybe on console too, but I think there's a lot of people looking forward to that one, especially if you're a huge nerd.
I've recognized the name.
The Mage's Tale comes to PSVR. The corrupt wizard Gaufroy, Gaufroy, has kidnapped your master, and only you have any hope of saving him. Explore 10 deadly dungeons and decipher mind-bending puzzles, avoid terrifying traps, and vanquish hordes of vicious monsters in breathtaking VR.
Melbit's World comes to PS4, the cooperative puzzle platformer game that will equally charm and challenge your friends and family. Communication and coordination are the key to success in the Melbit's mission.
Monster Energy Supercross, the official video game 2, comes to PS4. The official Monster Energy AMA Supercross Championship game is back. Live the life of a pro with the updated career mode, test yourself in the compound, manage your events, and attract new sponsors to earn fame and unlock new content.
Pipe Push Paradise comes to PS4. Pipe Push Paradise is a challenging plumbing-based puzzle game. You've arrived on a lonely island faced with a hero's calling. Rise to the occasion, parentheses, push pipes around, end parentheses, and restore this paradise to its former glory.
That's funny.
I like that. Rise to the occasion. Push pipes around, really. It's really just pushing pipes around.
Pro Fishing Simulator comes to PS4. This must be the 17th fishing game that we've read about since this show began.
Yeah.
An authentic sport fishing simulation for both beginners and avid anglers. Explore the most beautiful fishing spots in the world and reel in the best catches by combining techniques and the best official equipment. By the way, just between this and the elk game that we read earlier and some of these other hunting games, this shit is a big part of what people are playing on PS4.
It's kind of crazy because there's a lot of them, so there has to be a demand for them.
Definitely, dude. The farming simulator stuff, all the hunting games, the fishing games, these like outdoorsman stuff, people are definitely buying these games. I want to know more about them, but that would require me to play them.
Just immediately gave up. It's like, maybe not. Maybe I don't want to know anything about him. Rage Room comes to PSVR. Now that sounds like my apartment.
Yeah, there you go.
Welcome to Rage Room. Leave your day behind, let loose, and release your rage. Every last bit of it. With over 50 weapons to fuel your fury, our test dummies won't know what hit them, or at least until they gain sentience.
Oh,
that's actually intriguing.
Chris is into the Rage Room on PS4.
That last sentence is actually like genuinely like, ooh.
Ooh. Riot. Civil Unrest comes to PS4. This is also
we
called
read this. Before.
We did read this one?
This I remember.
This sounds
maybe
like,
we read a story about it.
Also called The United States, The Future. Riot, Civil Unrest is a riot simulator that places the players in the heart of some of the world's most fractious clashes. If this is a real thing about real riots that have happened, count me in.
Yeah.
Straight up, count me in.
I remember fractious clashes because I thought that was a
Like, can you go, like, are the LA riots in there?
Maybe it's DLC though. Oh my goodness. Shanky, the vegan's nightmare, comes to PS4. Shanky is a joyful meat grinder, and mince is its movement force. Swallow up everything you can collect. Meat cola to stay on the move?
Swallow up everything you can and collect meat cola to stay on the move.
Meat cola. And remember, there's never enough mints, so keep grinding. There's so much uncomfortability in that. Like, I felt really displeased reading that. I appreciate the title, though. Vegan's Nightmares is a fun little jab.
Final game, Chris, is Spike Volleyball. Comes to PS4. Spikes, blocks, floaters. I love floaters. I always have floaters in the toilet. Master the skills and tactics of indoor volleyball. With 50 men's and women's national teams, Spike Volleyball draws you into the realistic action of one of the most complex and spectacular team sports played today.
I thought it was just 50 men's and women's.
That's all we have for the games, Chris. We do have, to end things off, if I'm counting correctly, and I think I am, 10 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience.
Sounds good.
Shall we move through them?
Let us do so.
David Colin Copeland wrote into us and said, "Hey, Colin and Silly Chris. January was one of my favorite months in gaming with the releases of Resident Evil 2 and Kingdom Hearts 3. When firing up both, I couldn't help but smile because I couldn't believe I was finally playing each one, and so close together too. Can you remember a time when you started a game and just couldn't believe you were finally playing it? Or is there a game in the future you expect will be surreal to turn on for the first time, such as Metroid Prime 4? Do you have any answers to this, Chris?
Oh, yeah. The original, when Destiny came out, I genuinely couldn't believe that I was playing it because that was like a really huge shift. Because it was a Bungie game that I was playing on a PlayStation, which is it was its own kind of weird. But also, I'd been looking forward to that game since it was like teased in like 2008. I'm very familiar with that feeling.
How about a future game? He says Metroid Prime 4 might elicit this feeling in him. Metroid Prime 4 obviously just rebooted or announced to be rebooted for Switch. Are there any upcoming games that you're really overly anticipating? Like Mr. Copeland here is overly anticipating Metroid Prime 4?
I'm looking forward to Doom, but I don't think I'm going to be surprised that I'm playing it. It's kind of like those things when, like, when you're a kid, you think, oh, if I get out of the map in this game, there's probably like some crazy thing, right? But no, it's just emptiness.
It's just over.
Because that's what a game is. It's just a facade.
Well, David, I am happy that you had a good month with Kingdom Hearts 3 and Resident Evil 2. That must be very exciting for you. I think the game that comes to mind for me is Mega Man 9. When that came out in 2008, I couldn't believe it. That I was like playing a new 8-bit Mega Man game. It was unbelievable to me. I actually was allowed to go home because I was like so excited to play it. Like they at IGN night, they're like, you can leave.
Really?
Yeah, because those are my game. The 8-bit Mega Man games are like my shit, you know? So I never thought I'd play another one. And then I played another one in 2010. They released number 10 and I was like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
You know, like I can't, what a golden era that was for people like me. As far as games, you know, it's not announced yet. It might never come. But if we ever got a Final Fantasy Tactics 2, or we got technically 2 more Final Fantasy Tactics on Game Boy Advance and DS. But if we ever got a real Final Fantasy Tactics game again, I wouldn't be able to even stand it. Like I wouldn't even be able to believe that it was happening. You know, how could that be possible? Yeah. Why is it taking so long for them to do something? Final Fantasy Tactics is so good, So good. And I hate when people say like, oh, go play Fire Emblem. But it's just weird to me that they just ignore this particular fundamental way of playing a game, strategy, turn-based strategy, role-playing games.
Yeah.
Because they had Front Mission, which was really great. They had Final Fantasy Tactics. They had Tactics Ogre later on, which was, awesome as well. I just don't understand why we don't get these games. They're so good. They're so good. And Fire Emblem and Valkyria Chronicles and all these, they don't do it justice. It's not the same. Disgaea, they're not the same. They're just not the same.
If we're going for hypothetical games, like you did with Tactics, whatever, I would lose my shit if there was a new Legacy of Kain game. If I was playing a new Legacy of Kain, I would flip out. And I don't think I would believe it until I was finished with it.
Justin Markser wrote in and said, hey, CNC PlayStation Factory, having beaten Resident Evil 2 twice this last weekend, I have come to the realization that the less is more philosophy that developers most likely carried throughout the dev cycle for this game has worked in its favor, much like in the PS1 and 2 era. With that said, do you think more developers would benefit to make leaner, meaner games or not? During an age of games as service, bottom line chasing releases such as Destiny, do you feel this philosophy would be financially intelligent or cumbersome? Well, Justin, it shows that it's probably intelligent because of how well Resident Evil 2 Remake is doing. But I must say that I too was satiated. I haven't beaten it yet. But I was satiated by clearly how short the game was going to end up being and how it relied upon a few replays, not only with another character, but to get better rankings and all of that. I felt like every room had a reason to be there, and there was like something populating that room and something interesting to see in that room. And I feel like its tightness is what makes it so good.
It's purposeful. I really like it. I think it'd be great because with all these live service games being so demanding of your time and like feeling almost like a chore sometimes, these one-off like tight, well-crafted experiences kind of feel like it's almost like live service games are like the desert, and like a game like Resident Evil is like the Mirage. It's like, oh, finally some respite.
But, yeah, exactly.
And I
an oasis for you.
Yeah, I remember feeling relief when I was playing it. Like, oh, I'm not grinding for something. This is a good feeling to just play like a complete thing.
Yeah, no, definitely.
That I knew wasn't going to be this ridiculous time sink for several years of my life.
Justin, to me, and I think Chris would agree with this, I actually think as these games as a service, when we were talking about them earlier, these games as a service become even more and more prevalent, that people will just, like Chris said, looking for a respite, and it might benefit the best of these types of games. I'm not saying that all of these games are going to benefit, but if you are walking into a Resident Evil 2 experience knowing that 10 or 15 hours is the most you're probably going to get out of it, that's pretty appealing if you know that all you otherwise want to do is play Destiny 2 all day.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, I think it's good. And the sales show that it's good. I also want to reiterate that releasing games early in the year is also very smart. I think that releasing games in the beginning of January, the middle of January, really intelligent time to release a game because people are kind of getting over their Christmas games. They are back at work. They're back to the grind. Things are normal again. Great, really great time to release a game, I think. People should look at it more. Esteban Aguilar wrote into us on Patreon, said, hey there, butt-naked toilet cleaner and awesome Chris. Well, thank you for that.
Okay.
I would like to know if you think it is a good idea to buy a PS4 for the first time at the end of its life cycle, or to jump to next-gen PlayStation when it comes out. I would really like to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I'm kind of two minds about this. On one hand, it's a really good time to buy now because there's so much available to you that by the time the PS5 launches, it's probably going to be even more stuff that you're probably not going to be able to get to. But at the same time, why spend the money if you could just get the PS5 when it comes out and it's theoretically going to be backwards compatible and you could just not worry about being behind?
Right, exactly. I think that we have to kind of establish things that we just don't know yet. So it's hard to answer the question. Presuming that PlayStation 5 is backwards compatible, I've imagined a situation to not kill PS4 sales where they don't even admit that PS5 is backwards compatible initially, or avoid that question. So? Because if you say that, if you come out with PS5, let's say that they're going to release PS5 like we think in the fall of 2020, and they announce it in the beginning of 2020, and you say it's backwards compatible with PS4, what does that do to PS4 sales? They're done. Like, why would anyone go and buy a PS4 now? I think we need to wait to see how that shakes out, or PS4's price drops precipitously, which is also another option where you can get like a $149 PS4 Slim or whatever, which might be the case. But, we're not that close to the end yet either, Esteban. So my thing is that if you mean now, it's not the end. There's probably 2 years left or so, right, of PS4, good PS4 releases, maybe even more, because PS4 will probably be supported after PS5 comes out. So I don't think it's a bad idea to get involved now. If you're asking, do you want to get involved next year or something, then yeah, you might want to wait until they say something about PS5. But yeah, there's plenty to play on PS4, because now a lot of people are theorizing that all of the studios, most of Sony's assets have moved on to PS5. And I'm like, well, that's obvious to a degree, but now it has people wondering, like, is The Last of Us 2 a PS5 game? Is Ghost of Tsushima a PS5 game? Are they actually going to move all of these over? And my answer to that is no. There's no way. Maybe they'll launch them. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw The Last of Us 2 on PlayStation 5 natively or as a backwards compatible game. But we have a lot of time to get through. And we only know about Days Gone's release date, and presumably Dreams comes out this year sometime. That's all they're going to roll with. I don't think so, guys. Eric Clyde wrote in and said, hey, CNC Podcast Factory. With Nintendo making some noise in the mobile marketplace with Pokemon Go and the upcoming Mario Kart title, and by the way, my girlfriend is still obsessed with Pokemon Go, should Sony go after this market at all? I know you two probably wouldn't play a game on mobile, but does it make sense for Sony to have some presence there? With first-party games, do you think this could be formatted into an engaging mobile title? Thanks for sacrificing the infants so we don't have to. Well, you're very welcome for that, Eric. Thank you for your kind word. Now, Sony has played around in the mobile space in the past. They released like an Uncharted Endless Runner, I think, and maybe even something with Little Big Planet.
They made a PlayStation phone, didn't they?
Yeah, and they had the PlayStation. It was like an Xperia phone.
Yeah.
And PlayStation Mobile was a service. And they had PlayStation Minis, which were like mobile games that were then ported to PSP. So there was all this weird stuff that was going on. But the answer is yes. Now, the thing that they're missing is something meaningful, right? Like, Pokemon Go is an ingenious game from many perspectives. But the most ingenious part of it, Chris, is how it's slowly lulling people into real Pokemon games, right? Yeah. They released that Let's Go Pokemon game at the end of the year. My girlfriend's asking me now about my Switch and those games, and now the real Pokemon game comes out at the end of this year on Switch. So yeah, it's like a little bit of bait, right?
Yeah, it's like a little ad game.
I just don't know what Sony has. Like, you know, Mario Runner, whatever that game was called, was supposed to be pretty popular, but Sony doesn't have anything like that. In backing up, they should get involved in mobile, I think, and put some mobile games out there to kind of tease people, but I just don't know what they would do because Days Gone Match 3 or something, that's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I can't think of anything that would fit. Maybe they could take some of the Kingdom Hearts 3 mobile game things and put them on.
Right, exactly.
But that's not even a PlayStation thing, so.
I think it's smart, but I just don't think that they have anything engineered towards that. And they haven't matured anything that, like, Fat Princess would be really interesting on mobile, or something minor, but they've not done anything to nurture those brands to make them readily, like the last Fat Princess game came to PS4 and it was a complete failure. No one gives a shit about that game. So yeah, and it was weird. It was like a top-down kind of like action game. It wasn't the Fat Princess from PS3 that was so ingenious, which was shoving cake into princesses' mouths and making them fat, right? So that they couldn't be moved. By the way, that's an amazing game, Fat Princess. They would never get away with that game today.
I think you could.
Where the idea is that a bunch of knights are shoving food down another princess's throat so that they cannot be carried away
as long as taken prisoner. As long as it's cutesy, I think you can get away with anything.
It's very cute. It was also incredibly violent, which was really funny about it. I loved that game. That was a really, really cute game. So I guess what I'm saying is that they haven't matured anything. Like PlayStation All-Stars could have been another game, not necessarily a fighting game, but that could have been something else where they could have had some sort of platform, a trading card platform or something. There's an Uncharted trading card game on Vita. You know, you could port something like that. It was called Fight for Fortune. But I just don't know what they would do. What are you going to have, like a Drake Endless Runner? Or
yeah, I can't imagine.
I don't know. It would be, you know, it's not a new idea to have mobile games connect to retail and console games. This really started most intimately with Dreamcast. But I don't know that we have anything that would make the most sense. They're in a weird pincer here because they're appealing to the most hardcore gamers, and that doesn't parlay well. On the other hand, Pokemon Go, like, there's a place down the street for me just a couple blocks away where I walk Lola sometimes. It's in front of a hotel, and people gather there constantly.
Yeah.
Like to play Pokemon Go, like still. The game came out almost 3 years ago.
There's like a gym there or something?
Some sort of nerdy thing going on over there.
Yeah.
But thank you for your question, Eric. Alex Cook wrote into us and said, hello, Colin and Chris. With PlayStation first-party studios seemingly turning their attention to PS5 and by your estimation still not releasing until 2020, could PS5 potentially have the best launch games ever? Spider-Man 2, Horizon Zero Dawn 2, Death Stranding cross-platform. Seems like PS going quiet is only helping this theory. Do you anticipate, Chris, that we would get a launch library that robust? My theory is that you're going to get Spider-Man 2 and possibly Horizon on PS4.
You think so?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think so at all. I don't think Spider-Man 2 is coming to PS4.
I just think that they already have the architecture ready to go. Now, it scales a lot better, presumably with this x86 architecture and all of that, but
I think it could be a strategy, especially since, like, I don't know what else they could possibly do to convince people to drop their PS4s. You know, like, they're really following up a really tough act. Like, Xbox has it pretty easy from here on out because everything that they do is kind of like a step up from where they were, but even if PS5 does everything right, it's probably not going to live up to the insane, like, record-breaking track that the PS4 is on. So the only thing that I could think that they could do better is have a historically ridiculously amazing launch lineup, because that would actually get people to go on, as opposed to just like abandoning their PlayStation 4s. That
right.
It could be. It's not really something that's happened before, as far as I could remember. We've not had a launch lineup that good for a long time.
No, I actually think that in many ways the Vita launch lineup is probably the strongest launch lineup of any PlayStation device, but that obviously wasn't appealing to a lot of people. there's two things I think you have to be careful of. Is one, you don't want to launch too many games at once. Like Infamous Second Son and Drive Club were supposed to also be available at launch. That would have joined Knack and Killzone as 4 first-party games in addition to Resogun and all these second-party games. So I think that you have to not look at the launch necessarily, but at the launch window, the first 6 months to a year. You want to definitely have a cadence of games every 3 months, 4 months of big games coming out. So presuming Spider-Man and Horizon sequel are going to be on PlayStation 5, and again, I don't know about that. I just don't know about that. I think that they'll be playable on PS5. I just don't know about that because of the tools that are made and like how the games look and the quick turnaround of just making another game in that engine without fucking with it. But if they were going to do something like that, just make sure to scatter them a little bit. Because I actually think Drive Club's almost year-long delay and Infamous's delay into the spring of next year helped those games. And otherwise, you get all these games at once, then you kind of forget about them all. And then, Killzone, I think, was just a nice game to just have out there. I still think Killzone or SOCOM or something like that will be a launch game. I still really feel like Horizon could be a PS4 game. Horizon 2 and Spider-Man 2 could be a PS4 game. But again, it won't matter if what the future holds for us.
Yeah, if it's playable on the PS5.
It won't matter. Especially if they have up-resing and all whatever kind of stuff like that.
They probably will.
But, I think in getting into Alex's question just a little more deeply, if I might, Death Stranding is the one game that I think is realistically a PlayStation 5 launch game. Like that I'd believe. If someone came to me that I really knew and were like, that's a launch game for PS5, I'd be like, I believe you. Because I don't think Killzone's dead. And so that brings into question what Guerrilla might be doing. And Spider-Man 2 is definitely coming. I didn't put it in the news last week, but the writer of Spider-Man 1 had tweeted out vaguely that he submitted the first draft of the story, of a random story, and you assume it's the sequel to the game. So if that's the case, then it might only be in very early pre-production, in which case PS5 would make a lot more sense. But I'm trying to just be tuned in, Chris, to this idea of like what's easiest for the developers. And like they just released Spider-Man, this massive hit, and then they have to do all of this work to it.
Yeah.
As opposed to just like making another game in that world. That kind of sucks. That's not why you do that kind of game, So, I don't know.
We'll see.
It would be interesting to see if they expand to Queens and Brooklyn and other places in the new one. Could you set another Spider-Man in that same city? Joey Rawlings wrote into us, Chris, and said, "Hello, my 2 depressed DualShock wielding friends." Hello, Joey. Am I the only person that isn't getting on the hype train about the rumored backwards compatibility for the PS5? To me, the PS4 sold gangbusters by being the place to play great games and shying away from the all-in-one fiasco Xbox One launched with. Microsoft did announce backwards compatibility for the Xbox One to include OG Xbox and 360, but this was well into the lost war that was this console generation. Sony continued to pound Microsoft into the ground with their regular releases of solid first-party games. It felt like Sony was always looking forward while Microsoft had to resort to their past, looking at you, Game Pass. Maybe it's because Colin cringe here. Once I rolled credits on a game, I hate that term. You guys know how I feel about the term rolling credits. I hate it. On a game combined with the size of the modern games and a very limited amount of time to play, as a husband, father of 2, and volunteer EMT, I simply don't have a desire to go back and replay games. There is and was too much good content to play. I may be in the minority here and have been trained by Sony to not expect backwards compatibility with a modern console, but without a damned good reason, I'm not going to buy a brand new console to play games that run perfectly fine on my existing consoles. Thanks for all you have done, do, and will do into the future, or until Chris succumbs to his illness.
It's very likely.
Chris seems to be on the mend. He's no longer convalescing.
Yeah, no, my blood is no longer congealing.
Talk to me a little bit about this, Chris. I really feel like people that don't understand the importance of backwards compatibility, while maybe not important to them, it would be like me coming and saying like Battle Royale game. I don't like Battle Royale games. They're not important.
I think it's important that we don't look at like Game Pass and backwards compatibility as like a sign of like weakness or looking back, because they're both incredibly consumer friendly practices that are actually kind of forward thinking if you really look at it, because when the next Xbox launches, they have systems in place to ensure that the people will always be able to play games that they've invested into that ecosystem. And it's just a consumer friendly thing to be able to be like, hey, I've put a lot of money into PlayStation over the years, and now I want to keep supporting you by following you on your next endeavor. Why should I lose every single bit of capital that I've invested in this company? It doesn't really make sense, and it only makes sense because we've had to deal with that reality for so long, because consoles weren't really online enabled, and we didn't really have this PC console kind of hybridization that's going on right now. But now I don't see a reason not to have backwards compatibility. I don't know why Game Pass is included in here, because that's just a consumer friendly subscription service. That's not necessarily backwards compatibility. And I think PlayStation's on their way to doing something like Game Pass, honestly.
Yeah,
right?
I think so too, which might be why they're so silent about PS Plus, is to just kind of let it ride for a little while and then have a nice offering to go out alongside the new console.
I just feel like it's better to have something and not need it than to need something and not have it. And to be able to play your old games, I think, is a good thing.
I just don't understand the idea of this not being important or not something that you would want just in case. And it's almost like a political party, where like a political party is made up of like these disparate people that don't really necessarily agree with each other and everything, but they're like trying to get to the next level by like, I want this, well, we agree on this, whatever. And then we become this kind of force that makes change or gets things done. And the PlayStation ecosystem should look at it itself like that, because even if backwards compatibility is not important to you, it's really important to a lot of people. And you're only going to get them to come on board or buy in if they know they can play their old games. So if you want PlayStation to succeed as a player and a fan of the brand, then these are the things that you would want, even if you have no intention of using them.
Yeah.
Because it spells the most likelihood mathematically of success for the brand by drawing in the most amount of people.
Yeah, and it also makes sure that, like, especially in the realm of multiplayer games, if let's say Sony, well, they don't, but let's say Sony has a multiplayer exclusive on PS4 that's like super popular, and then PS5 comes out, and then there's not a lot of people playing on it because everybody's on PS5. Well, now that game can survive longer than the life cycle of the console that it's on because it's playable on the next generation of hardware. I just think it's a smart move in general.
I do too. There is no reason not to make PS4 or PS5 backwards compatible with PS4 digitally and retail at the very least, and then maybe go from there. Keeping in mind that the next Xbox will let you almost certainly play Xbox One and Xbox 360 games, so they're going back even further.
Yeah.
Sony has to play offense here. And to Chris's point, and I think it's a really salient point, Chris, just because these things came out of Microsoft when they were losing doesn't mean anything. It means that they were doing what they needed to do to survive. And that's where a lot of great ideas come from a lot of businesses well outside of video games. So Sony would be very wise to copy these ideas, just like they copied achievements, just like they copied all of this kind of other stuff, and bring it on board and make it a place where people won't even think twice about moving over. Microsoft making moves like they are with Nintendo and Xbox Live being on Switch and all these things, you are dealing with a fucking wily ass company that's doing things that Sony is simply not prepared to do, and it's going to cause problems for Sony. I'm telling you, if they don't get this shit in order, Microsoft is clearly creating an unholy alliance with Nintendo. I mean, that's obvious. If PlayStation remains in their little silo and doesn't allow any of this to happen, they're about to get fucked. Xbox Live is going to get the virtual console. I'm fucking telling you, fucking mark it.
You think so?
Mark it.
That would be wild. That'd be insane.
Mark it. This river has to go both ways.
Yeah.
It seems like Microsoft's playing really nice with Switch right now. There's got to be something Nintendo will give to Microsoft.
Yeah.
And that would be huge. That would be massive. And what better way for Nintendo to get back at their old rival, Sony, than to get in bed with another one of their old rivals, Xbox, and start working together in an intimate way. They're basically making a mobile Xbox platform using the Switch.
Wow. That's it's like almost devious.
Things are happening there. So Joey and everyone else that writes in about this stuff, keep your eyes open. And I wouldn't, if you care specifically about how, I don't own stock in these companies. I really don't ultimately care. But if you care about PlayStation's lively, like their health and their ability to continue to create, I'd keep a close eye on what Nintendo and Microsoft are doing with each other.
Yeah.
The fact that this is happening at GDC, for people that don't know, GDC is Game Developers Conference. This is where people from all around the world go to San Francisco, and they basically sit in seminars all week in meetings and learn about different things. I've sat in really fascinating conversations there. It's also where a lot of games are bought and sold behind the scenes. Publishers get deals, indie devs go. Lots happening there. If they're doing this publicly at GDC with a branded panel, something's happening, guys.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's I'll say this, like I play on everything. I play on PC, I play on Switch, I play on Xbox, I play on PlayStation. And while I'm looking forward to the PlayStation exclusive games the most, I think whatever's going on at Microsoft is definitely the most interesting industry-wise to look at and like pay attention to. It's super, super strange.
Phil Spencer's an incredibly ingenious person. I think that's obvious, and I think that Don Matrick, on the other hand, was
he was awful.
He was holding them back.
Even people who were like diehard Xbox people were like, "Why is this person here?" Everybody hated him.
Yeah, he was a strange cat, and like Microsoft, I don't want to drive this into the ground because we've talked about it so much, but like they really should be commended on what they're doing with the platform and with their initiative. And the only advantage Sony really has right now is that they can watch. They can make changes. People always say like, oh, people make changes to E3 based on what these other guys announced at E3. And I'm like, not really. I've heard stories. I've told you stories about some things that have changed there, but that typically doesn't happen. But if you give someone literally a year or 6 months, you can make legit changes. Not necessarily with the hardware, which is probably locked in, but software and emulation and firmware and all that kind of stuff, and various initiatives and Game Pass and backwards compatibility. Sony has that one advantage. But if Microsoft comes out strong at E3, if they really do have some sort of Nintendo partnership brewing,
they're also the only people going at E3.
Yeah,
because Nintendo doesn't really do that. They do the directs around E3, right. But oh my god!
And they announced, I think Microsoft announced last week that they are planning on making this like they're going all in at E3. Like
This is a weird time.
So the pendulum swings in games all the time, guys. It always, always, always swings. And no one will sit here and say that PlayStation hasn't wiped the floor with its competitors with first-party games this year.
Oh, for sure.
Or this generation, because it absolutely has. And those matter, of course. And PS4s, like we're selling, it'll be 100 million sold before you know it, right? And I'm not saying anything like that, but the future doesn't bode as well as the current strength of PlayStation indicates it might. Now, they've shown a propensity to fix things.
They have.
But this year of silence is going to be really deafening if they really don't have much to say when all this stuff's happening around them. So we'll see what happens. Zach O'Brien wrote into us and said, hey guys, do you think we will ever see a VR title from Sony done in the same way as RE7? Fully playable with or without the headset? After playing Astrobot, I feel like a full-blown Ratchet & Clank game in VR could work. 3D action platformer with some first-person flight sequences in space would be awesome. Perhaps even a full Resistance or Killzone game playable with the headset and aim controller. Thanks, guys. Great moves, Colin and Chris. Keep it up. Proud of you. Thank you, Zach, for your inquiry. I don't know, because Sony is already making massive investments into a headset that only a few million of them exist out there, and I would say probably a third of those people are even engaged with it, if that. I don't know that I think Dreams is going to have incredible VR opportunities. I think that's obvious. And I think that's probably what was taking them so long to make the game. But at the same time, I don't know that it's worth the sacrifice of development resources at, say, Horizon or at Guerrilla with Killzone to say, like, we're going to make Killzone. It'll be playable fully in VR. It'll be fully playable outside of VR. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of investment for something that not a lot of people will care about. It doesn't have the same boom effect that Resident Evil 7 did when they announced and revealed that.
I don't think it works for action-heavy titles. I think if you're going to put out a horror title, I would say it's worth the investment, because I think VR really strengthens horror, but it doesn't really strengthen anything else. Like, there's a Doom VR thing on Steam, and it's the most nauseating thing ever. I love Doom, but like, wow. It doesn't work for a fast-paced. Even something like Horizon, like I can't doing all those barrel rolls in VR. Jesus Christ!
Yeah, to throw up.
No,
and the resolution's so low. I think the beauty of VR is not like Moss is a game that I talked a lot about.
Moss is great.
Yeah, really. Did you play it?
Yeah, I played a little bit of it.
Yeah, really great game. Now Moss is super low resolution as it were, and all that. Like if you saw it and you watch it on TV, and you can see it on TV, it just doesn't look good. It only looks good in the VR headset. So it's just you're making games for different platforms, for different audiences. I think you got to kind of stay in your lane with that a little bit if you can. RE7 was a really nice example of it. It's supposed to be excellent in VR. I'm not contesting that. But I think generally you want to stay in one lane or the other. We have 3 more questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas. Curtis Lights wrote in and said, hi, Colin and Silly Chris. My question is this. On the show, you have both been talking a lot about the price point for games moving forward into the PS5 generation. Far Cry New Dawn seems to be launching with a $40 price point across the board. Obviously, the game is not out yet, but it feels like Ubisoft could have easily launched this game at $60. Should Ubi get some credit for launching a AAA game at a lower price point? Does this hint at the possibility that there might be something wrong with the game? It's very short, repetitive, uninteresting, or is it all just due to the fact that they are recycling the map and they think interest might be somewhat low due to the short turnaround from Far Cry 5's launch date being less than a year prior? I find it hard to believe that they are simply lowering the price point to be fair to consumers, though I do want to believe it. What are your thoughts on this? And what would other publishers, developers learn from this move? I know you have both talked about the price of games probably going up in the near future, but it is also important to realize that not all games are the same and that some games absolutely should have a lower price point as well. Do you think we will see more of this kind of thing from Ubi in the future? So it's important for me to say here, Curtis, at the top, that I've said that game prices should fluctuate, that they shouldn't only go up, that we should explore the space in between. Like I said, YouTuber's Life OMG, $30. Now, Far Cry New Dawn is $40 because it is a spin-off on the same engine in the same world in a very short dev cycle.
In a crowded month.
In a crowded month with a game that requires you in some way to play the original as well. New Dawn is in some way a $100 investment because why would you play New Dawn without having played Far Cry 5? It's a direct sequel. It takes place right after it, 17 years after it. So I think that has something to do with it. I also think that Ubisoft has the money and the capital to explore and see how that does for them. There are examples of $40 games doing extraordinarily well. Ratchet & Clank on PS4 is probably the biggest example. They sold a shit ton of games by making it $40. That's very appealing and very attractive. So I think there's a lot of things wrapped up into there, but I'm excited about exploring the price points both up and down.
Yeah.
We had mentioned that there's an Avalanche developed open world game called Generation something. I can't remember anymore. We talked about it a week or two ago, where they're releasing that game at $40. You know, even though Avalanche is a AAA studio, even though they've made AAA games, and even though they're making Rage 2 and Just Cause 4, they're releasing a $40 game. So I think people are, at these devs and these publishers, are finding appeal in this middle space that's been abandoned, and that they can make a reasonable amount of money there by making a game in 2 years. It's not the highest resolution. It's not the best fidelity.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think that Far Cry New Dawn is going to like change the world.
It looks actually kind of a little bit jank, but yeah, because I remember that trailer that they came out with the dog jumping through the car window. It was like the strangest animation I've ever seen, especially in a Far Cry trailer. But I think it mostly has to do with, you know, the investment, and the interest probably is kind of low compared to everything else around it in that really crowded month too.
Yeah, I mean,
that's also something to take into account.
That's true as well, because it comes out imminently, and in only a few months from there, or a couple months from there, Rage 2 comes out, which for me, on a visual level, they look very similar to me. Like the whole post-apocalyptic, colorful.
Yeah, Rage looks a bit more polished, but
well, definitely.
Yeah,
I mean, there's no doubt about that. But from an aesthetic point of view, it's like the very Mad Max-ish, post-apocalyptic, wild fucking colors, you know, pastels. And it seems like that might be another reason why they're making it cheaper. But I think a lot of it has to do... Like, Far Cry Primal, I think, was a full $60 game.
I think so.
But that was like its own game. I want to see more about Far Cry New Dawn. And again, because Ubisoft doesn't work with us, we will not see it until it comes out. But I'm eager to play it. I'm going to buy it the second it comes out. I'm excited to play it, but... we'll have to see. Chris, we have 2 more questions to get through.
Alrighty.
Zhu Wawagu, and I'm sorry if I said that wrong.
Yeah.
Wrote in and said, Dear, I mean, I think that's it. Zhuwawagu. Zhu Wawagu. Dear Colin and Chris, it's Chinese New Year on February 5th. So by the time a lot of people hear this, it would have already passed. Happy Chinese New Year and a prosperous year of the pig to you and your family. Thank you very much. I think I was born, perhaps not surprisingly, in the year of the rat, if I recall.
Really?
Yeah, 1984, I think, was the year of the rat. I could be making that up.
I'm going to look up mine.
I would like to hear your opinion on in-game events that tie into real-life festivals. Personally, I enjoy them a lot, and I like how I get to enjoy the festivities of festivals that are not originally celebrated where I live, in China, although in a much watered-down version. For example, in games, we get pumpkin or scary-themed events during Halloween and turkey-themed items during Thanksgiving, but I believe the spirit of the festival is still there. I've also seen Chinese festivals and otherwise Western games which players seem to enjoy, as in characters and maps get Chinese-themed makeovers, etc. However, I've also heard opinions that it is just too superficial and commercialized, and it's just another way of marketing, like how some people describe Valentine's Day. Do you have any insight or heard anything when developers put these non-local events into games? Do you think that it'll bring in regional players, like Chinese games or Chinese players for Chinese New Year, or at least some part of it about your celebration or acknowledgement? Thank you for your consistently good podcast. Thank you for your question. I think it's awesome because as long as the developer's not going too far out of their way, it's profitable or whatever, it does attract new people. If you're making something, it's really quite attractive to these different cultures to be like, we're paying attention to you. We want you to play with us. This is no skin off our backs. Let's celebrate something that makes no sense to some of our audience, but makes sense to you. I think that's a very attractive thing.
No, for sure. Yeah. It doesn't do much for me, but
Right.
it doesn't hurt it either.
Chris is not a celebrant of Chinese New Year.
I don't celebrate anything.
No.
There's
There's nothing
even
you
my
celebrate.
birthday. On my birthday specifically, I actually sleep the entire day.
I hate my birthday as well.
Yeah.
But who got you a better birthday present than me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I got
can't
you.
argue with that.
Got you a
The
nice
PSVR without the camera.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry about that. Now,
This shit's hard to find, by the way.
is it really the PlayStation camera?
Yeah, not on Amazon, but like I went to GameStop looking for it, and they were like, "Yeah, we got one, but it's cracked." They said that we got one, but it's cracked.
Small wonder, $466 million loss for last quarter. Small wonder that they're...
Yeah, it's astounding. I can't imagine why.
You tried to go in and buy, a very basic peripheral that's sitting on top of my TV right there. You can take that one if you want. I don't care. But to me, I think it's good. I think the world is small. The world is getting smaller. The world is getting flatter. And we need to, I think, open our minds and our hearts to those kinds of things if we want to keep a global gaming society going. And I know that it doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people, but that certainly does mean a lot to the Chinese community.
Oh, for sure.
He's certainly right that we do this in very superficial ways with much more meaningless things like Halloween or Valentine's Day. So why wouldn't we do it to celebrate Chinese New Year? Why wouldn't we do it to celebrate Black History Month or Gay Pride or whatever? I think that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that to me.
Yeah, me neither.
The final question, Chris, or inquiry, comes from Rory Lalvao. And at the end, he says, now he says at the end, it's Laveau is how he says his name, but it's spelled Lailvaux.
Yeah, that's a whole...
Lailvaux. I don't know how you get Laveau. I know how you get Vo out of that.
That's a bastardization if I've ever seen one.
Rory Laveau wrote in and said, hey, Big C and Cool C. Which one's which?
We'll just leave it up to the imagination.
Okay. I was reminiscing with my brother recently about the novelty of using cheats back in generations past. The agony of trying to unlock invincibility for GoldenEye always comes to mind, along with magazines that printed codes backwards, so we had to hold them up to a mirror to unlock levels of Turok 2. My question to you is, do you guys have any fond memories of using cheats? And why do you think they're less prominent these days? Thanks, Rory Laveau.
No, of course. I have plenty of memory. Like, primarily on the PS1, actually, like with the original Neversoft Spider-Man game and a lot of the Tony Hawk Pro Skaters. And I think the original Xbox and PS2 era is when that started to, like, kind of die down. But we kind of talked about this before, where it's like games are just a lot bigger now. They're a lot more complicated now. Any number of like weird modifiers that used to be totally superficial are now kind of could potentially be game breaking. There's also the idea that, hey, you know, we could just add these cheats as features to appeal to people, or use them as microtransactions or downloadable content. When you can monetize cheats, you know, that's typically what people are going to do. We've kind of seen more lenience on that lately, especially with Resident Evil doing there's like a free DLC thing that's going on with that, and they have like this tofu character that you can play as like right out of the box. It's not like some kind of thing you have to buy, and I don't know. I do miss them, but I'm not tearing my hair out.
You're not broken up about it?
Yeah, I'm not broken up about it.
Yeah, it's cool. It's just from another era. I mean, I remember having my Game Genie on NES, which was awesome, and like the books that you could buy for them, and they would just let you manipulate the shit out of everything. And
yeah.
It was a different time. The games were simpler. They didn't break as easily, and so I think that has something to do with it. I also think that just expectations have changed too, and I think that, to your point, I think a lot of those expectations have changed because of online competition, of leaderboards, trophies, and achievements. You know, when I played the Spyro Reignited trilogy, I was surprised that they let me use the 99 life cheat.
Oh,
with
that's in
totally
there.
No penalty at all. Like, you could do that. And then there are games like Celeste, which I know a lot of people love, where you can cheat the shit out of that game and get the platinum trophy, like using the cheat system. So I know that that's probably another reason is you don't want to break the experience. But I also just think gamers are coming up in a different time and a different place where these things don't matter. The Game Genies and the Game Sharks and all these things we grew up with which were literally third-party peripherals that you had to like shove into your console to even use them. Those days are over. And so I think that that's good. I think that cheating less is, there's nothing wrong with cheating in games. It's fine. But like the idea of cheat codes, it's just an antiquated
It's also
thing.
worth noting that it's almost easier to break games nowadays. Like a lot of times in Halo 2, you just like, hey, let's get out of the map, and we could just do it. We didn't need a cheat code to do that, you know? And
right.
It's yeah, I don't know. I do miss him, but I'm not freaking out about it.
You're not crying at a room.
I'm not crying in my room about it on the roaches.
You are crying in your room.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What are you crying about in your room?
The roaches.
So you're crying on the roaches about the roaches?
No, I'm not crying on the roaches.
okay.
I'm crying about them.
Okay.
Because I can't get rid of them.
Do they watch you?
Can they look up?
I don't know. They don't have necks, I don't think.
Do they not? I've never thought about this.
They must have. I don't know.
Do they have milk?
They lactate?
No. There's like cockroach milk that they like. Milk is in parentheses though, so it's like one of those like.
Wait, what are you talking about? You make milk out of it, or they're lactating out of their roach nipples?
Scientists take some kind of enzyme or something out of their stomachs, and it makes milk out of it. I don't know why they're doing that when they could be, trying to figure out how to get cheat codes into new games.
Right, or murdering the roaches without any consequences for the ecosystem.
Yeah,
just murder them. Do they really need to exist?
Not really.
No,
they don't do anything.
No,
they eat other roaches.
Do they? They're cannibals.
Yeah, if they die, they'll eat. They feed on matter. I looked this up recently. It's like, what? I was curious. What do roaches eat? And the Wikipedia article said matter, which is the most off-putting thing.
Is anything.
That's just okay. Well, everything's gone at this point.
Interesting.
We succumb to the roaches.
Rad roaches. Yeah, they survive. And they exist in your house, along with you had some gnats.
Oh, those are taken care of.
So the gnats are gone. It's only the roaches now.
Yeah, it's only the roaches. They're behind the. I know they're behind the fridge, but I just don't feel like going through that experience of like pulling the fridge out and then watching them scurry.
You don't want to see that.
I don't want to see any of that. No. I almost feel like it's almost like ignorance is bliss, out of sight, out of mind kind of deal.
But what about your landlord?
I've called them to fumigate the place like 3 times already, and they did it 3 times, and then every time they didn't clean up. So I had to sweep all I had to sweep up all the carcasses.
Why not leave them there so that they get eaten?
But then there's more roaches coming out.
They're coming either way.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I got to find out how to like nuke them.
Chris, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you this week.
Of course.
Appreciate all of you guys out there listening to us. Remember, leave us nice reviews on free feeds if you listen to us there. I appreciate that. We do appreciate that. It helps us find a new audience. Support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Colin's Last Stand. Remember, we are slowly climbing towards 5,500 subscribers. If we reach that number and sustain it, we'll start putting this podcast on video. If we don't, too bad.
Yeah, screw
You'll
you
keep
guys.
getting this in audio, but we are going to start Let's Plays because we reached the 5,000 mark. We're going to start with YouTuber's Life OMG, which we're going to play right after this and put it up this week. It'll probably be live by the time you hear this on free feeds, so patrons keep an eye out on it.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it'll be. I want Chris to show me how to live the YouTuber's life, and I think we're going to get a lot of instruction from this particular game, and I'm going to actually play it on my own profile.
Yeah.
To get the trophies. I'm going to embrace it.
Brave man.
Yeah, I'm going to embrace it. So thank you all out there for your love, your kindness, and your support. We'll see you next time for more Sacred Symbols. Goodbye.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is fan-supported over at patreon.com/Colin's Last Stand. The following names are at the producer level or higher on Patreon, and I want to thank you from the very bottom of my heart for your incredible kindness and generosity. CJ Anderson, Morgan Ashley, Ethan Barbie, Sean Battershaw, Martin Beck, Fred Bentz, Michael Betts, Eric Bishop, David Blodel, Mark Boggio, Barrett Boswell, Spencer Brand, Lennon Brixey, Matthew Brousseau, Josh Bushing, Austin Bullock, Dylan Burns, Chris Buston, Alex Cabrera, Brian Cacciatolo, Will Caldwell, Luis Cancato, Patrick Harper, William O'Carroll, Brian Chan, Travis Chandler, Sean Chandler, David Chestnut, Simon Conception Jr., Brad Cooley, Cutter Crow, Nick Cummings, Daniel Diamore, Daniel Delanikos, Mitchell Durkash, Martha Emery, Joe Finelli, Eric Finkenbeiner, Stefano Fantana, Fodios Frangos, Connor Gajian, Alexander Gates, Michael Gates, Salem Ghanem El Ghanem, Toothless Gibbon, Daniel Glassford, Tyler Goodwin, Josh Gravelick, Miranda Grubba, Andres Guzman, Caleb Hager, Tyler Harris, Kyle Hagel, Asa Haas, Azan Isa El Ricey, Josh Yeager, Justin Yeager, Greg Julips, Anton K, Jeremy Key, James Kinslow III, Ryan R. Kitreg, Christian Larson, Jackson Lastiqua, Donald Laws, Joe Lawson, Don Q. Lee, Ashlyn Lee, Patrick Leslie, Dustin Lewis, Keith Adrian Lewis, Chad Lewis, Mark Liberto, Aaron Litwiller, Lewin Ray Loper, Colin Love, Josh M., Ryan T. Mandel, Peter Mark, Nicholas Mask, Joe McPartlin, Wyatt McVeigh, Dennis Minchin, Andrew Mendoza, Christopher Middling, Albert Miranda, Patrick Malloy, Betty Ann Moriarty, Abe Mukhtar, Brian Nietzsche, Josh Netzel, Adam Nix, George Anthony Nunez, Brian Ott, Israel Petrico, Jorge Palomino, Todd Paxton, Brendan Peavy, Marius S. Peterson, Enrique Perez, James Perrone, Eric A. Peterson, Jason Pettit, Matthew Plaster, Lawrence F. Prokop, John Quinn, Michael Renner, Peter Reynolds, Jonathan Rice, Toby D. Riebenschneider, Austin Riley, Petro Rose, A.G. Rowe, John Schultz, Chris Schaefer, Michael Shanholtz, Toby Shootman, Glendon Cole Simper, Joshua Smallwood, John Tabanillo, Ahmad Tamar, Joseph Thayer, Ben Thompson, Carl Tolman, Tam Tran, Adam Van Kuren, Michael Vecchio, Oakley Waldron, Justin Wagaman, Mike Wayne, Tyler Woodall, Corey Wyatt, Tony Zuniga, Casual Misfits Gaming, Supershot ST, Wyatt Henry, Throw 7, Infinite, Mad Mock Media, Mubarak, Sticks and Crits, Richter 86, That Rescue Guy, Andrew, Ian, Dav 9834, Titus Rex, Donk 2015, Gavin, and Random Guy Radio. Timothy Weckworth Jr. wrote into us on Patreon, said, Colin, I wanted to give you a little cost of living perspective in regards to Lola and her teeth cleaning. You mentioned last week that the cost was near $1,000 for anesthesia and cleaning. I also had to get my dog's teeth cleaned as well as one tooth removed recently. The total cost of the procedure here in Mississippi, $200. You guys are getting screwed over there in California, my friend. Well, Timothy, the difference here in California as opposed to Mississippi is that when they knock your dog out with anesthesia, they're not doing it with a bottle of Jim Beam. They're doing it with real anesthetic. So, whatever kind of stuff you guys are doing down there in Mississippi, I mean, I want you to really think about that. Okay, Timothy, I want you to really think about it. You walked your dog into a place and for $200, they put the dog under, cleaned his teeth and then extracted it. And I'm the weird one because I paid a premium to make sure my dog survived the ordeal.
$200 is a kind of premium, sort of ish.
$200 is a premium depending on what you're paying for. $200 for a cheeseburger, that's a good cheeseburger.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
$200 to knock a living creature out with people with PH doctors. They're medical doctors for animals called veterinarians.
Hey, listen, I can knock an animal out for free.
You could.
Yeah.
I was kind of inquiring, could we figure out how to do this so I could do the cleaning myself? Because I feel like that would be quite satisfying. Wouldn't that be quite kind of satisfying?
To brush an unconscious dog's teeth?
Yeah.
I guess so, because it'd be like a fantasy where it's like, oh, I don't have to deal with it flipping out constantly.
Right.
Yeah.
If you invited me to a vet's place and said, like, Colin, today, we're going to knock these dogs out, you're going to clean their teeth. I'd be like, that sounds fucking awesome.
Like a partition, like a magician, like a magic show?
Yeah, exactly. They
bring
call you up on stage. Wouldn't that be fun? You have all the little tools, the thing, because you're getting all the plaque out, identifying
I'd be
issues.
terrified. I'd be sure that I would kill it by accident.
I think that would be quite fun to use those various tools. And the tools, don't they all look the same? Even though they all have if you go to dental school, I assume that they instruct you on how to use all these tools. But they very much look the same.
They're just sharp metal things.
Yeah.